Hey everyone, this it's that I'm already tongue tied. 2 seconds in, that's how long it took me to fuck up. Anyway, hey everyone, to those who are here in the Zoom reading and anyone who is maybe watching this after the fact at home, this is Misery Loves Company. It's a weekly social reading series that hosts, I think what we've been saying is transgressive and outsider authors and artists. It's today is October 30th, aka Devil's Night, I guess, if you're from the Detroit area, which I'm not, but I've appropriated it. Yeah, and so we're doing a special kind of Halloween themed reading tonight. We've got some quote unquote spooky stories. Maybe more upsetting than spooky, I'm guessing, but we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. Anyway, so first up to read, now that I've made it through my obligatory awkward introduction here, is Dawson. And I will be putting links to the pieces in the chat, and I'll be posting them on Twitter for later. If anyone doesn't want their piece shared on Twitter because it's unpublished or whatever, just let me know and I won't put it up. Anyway, Dawson, you're up first.
All right. So this is called Dracula's in the Public Domain, so there's no good reason why I can't write a story about him. The beautiful widow Mina Harker awoke to cold lips at her neck, a taloned hand at her breast. Her eyes shot open wide at the sensation, then fluttered closed again. In the brief instant of sight this permitted her, Mina saw the figure of a man crouched low at her bedside, his face nuzzled into the soft place where her neck met her shoulder. Though man wasn't quite the right word for the thing she saw. Even dressed as he was in a baron's fineries, there was still something damnably inhuman about the figure. Each limb seemed to have 3 joints too many, and to connect at the torso at an unnatural angle, giving him the appearance and carriage of one of those great African apes written of by Sir Burton and others. The fingers on the hand she could see were overlong and hairy, having more in common with the legs of a tarantula than the digits of a healthy gentleman of the empire. Truly an anatomical anomaly. And his face. The fiend's eyes burned like embers, nestled in a complexion white as snow. His lips supported a bristly mustache in the style of a cavalry officer. This coarse comb of black hairs pricked at her neck and irritated the tender flesh there. Yet these bestial figures were crowned by an incongruously cerebrotonic brow. That a creature such as this could possess an intelligence equaling that of the brave Professor Abraham Van Helsing, who himself stood vigil in the adjoining room, only compounded his monstrousness. For it was surely not mere instinct that compelled him in his deviltry, but desire. Here, then, was the Count in his infernal glory. But despite her fear, Mina did not stir. She felt as though she had been dosed with opium. Her body sank into the bed. She was helpless before the Count. That is, until a terrible realization pierced through Mina's exhaustion. The same creature that now nursed from her veins, glutted itself on her blood, had stolen her beloved Jonathan from her. She recalled the letters Jonathan had sent all those months ago, how they had grown ever more frantic, detailing the Count's strange moods, his queer aversion to the symbols of the Catholic Church, and most troublingly, his nefarious designs on her before they stopped coming altogether. Was this how Jonathan met his end? Had the Count slipped into his quarters one night and sank his fangs deep into her lover's neck? Or had he snuck up behind him at dinner, or while he was engrossed in a book, waiting until Jonathan was unaware to cleave his skull in two with an antique candelabra? Did he eat Jonathan's brain? The possibilities were endless and endlessly horrific. Finally, Mina screamed. Her bedchamber door was thrown wide. The twin portraits of her and Jonathan jumped off the wall, their wooden frames splintering into pieces on the floor. Light from the parlor beyond haloed Abraham Van Helsing as he produced a revolver from the inner folds of his dinner jacket. The beast quickly withdrew from Mina's neck, hissing as a serpent might at this unwelcome intruder. Van Helsing leveled his weapon. The professor fired once. Crack! The bullet caught the creature in the stomach. A crimson rose bloomed through the fine fabric of his shirt. Twice. Crack! The abomination's left eye exploded. Gouts of vitreous fluid ran down its cheek in a sickly gray mockery of tears. 3 times. Crack! The beast jerked sideways as the bullet tore a jagged path through its shoulder. It shrieked in something that might have been pain. 4. Crack! The fiend's lower jaw disappeared in a spray of yellow teeth. Its tongue lolled out from what remained of his mouth to lick its own neck. 5. Crack! Van Helsing scored yet another headshot. Brains splattered against the wall behind the demon in a scarlet spray. 6. Crack. The bullet removed a kneecap. The monstrosity fell to the ground in a puddle of its own blood. 7. Click. The hammer fell on an empty cylinder. No matter. Though a pall of gun smoke clouded the tiny room, he could plainly see the fiend was now little more than a jumble of broken limbs. Dracula was dead. The nightmare that began in Transylvania so many centuries ago had finally reached its bloody conclusion on the bedroom floor of a quaint English townhouse. 6 gunshots served as the demon's eulogy. The Count would claim no new victims this night nor any other night. Mina rose from the bed, clutching her neck. Thin rivulets of blood seeped out between her slender white fingers. She swooned and fell into Van Helsing's arms. He held her steady as she slipped away into anemic torpidity. Van Helsing shut the door on the horror and carried Mina's unconscious form from her chamber to the parlor where his transfusion kit was waiting. The fiend had nearly exsanguinated poor Mina, and if she were to survive the evening's ordeal, she would need an immediate infusion of his blood. Van Helsing carefully laid Mina on the sofa. He then turned his attention to his kit, pulling out an apparatus that, to the untrained eye, looked to be nothing more than a rubber hose with 2 wickedly sharp needles at either end. In the middle of this hose was a brass valve, not unlike one would expect to find on a bathroom faucet. The professor inserted one needle into Mina's forearm, the other into his own. After squeezing the sofa cushion twice to get the blood flowing, Van Helsing opened the valve and warm, nourishing plasma pumped from his body into Mina's. The effect was immediate. Mina's cheeks flushed, her eyes opened. She turned to Van Helsing and asked what had happened. He told her of how he had vanquished the abomination, destroying its ghastly countenance in a hail of bullets. So great was her elation at this news that she almost lost consciousness again, but their celebration was short-lived. Something was moving on the other side of the bedroom door. The pair watched in terror as the knob turned and the door slowly creaked open. The thing that limped from Mina's bedroom was very nearly beyond description. Its clothes, so disconcertingly dapper, were soaked through with blood. Bullet holes pockmarked its visage. Worst of all, its absent lower jaw revealed a fleshy pink tongue and 2 pointed yellow fangs. The creature's injuries coalesced into one perfectly contiguous horror, each wound quite literally bleeding one into the next. The Count was upon Van Helsing in an instant. It lifted him one-handed by the lapel of his jacket. It forced its fangs deep into his neck, ripping through the delicate flesh to get at the veins beneath. Without its bottom jaw to siphon the blood down its throat, the action was significantly sloppier than befitted the Count. Having drunk its fill of the professor, the creature tossed Van Helsing across the room into a claw-footed table, which exploded on impact. The transfusion tube that tethered Mina and Van Helsing's arteries into one shared cardiovascular system was torn in the process, spraying crimson fountains of blood across the floor. The fiend grabbed Mina's arm and inserted the hose directly into its esophagus. Mina tried to pull away, but it held her steady. It continued to drink. She sagged. This would be the end of her. She would die at the hands of this foul creature in the shape of a man. Jonathan would go unavenged. Suddenly, Van Helsing appeared behind the Count, clutching a mahogany table leg. He brought it down hard on the demon's head. It whirled to face him, and the professor drove the jagged end of the leg into the abomination's heart. Van Helsing rode the beast to the ground, driving the improvised stake deeper into his chest as he did. It thrashed under him, but he refused to yield until whatever unnatural life remained within the Count expired. And for the second time that night, Dracula was dead. The professor rolled off the body. He laid on his back, panting. He tried to imagine how he would enter tonight's misadventure into his diary. Would he omit his failed initial attempt at assassinating the beast, or render every unflattering detail faithfully? He decided he would go with the former. Van Helsing was so lost in thought he didn't notice the way Mina eyed his Adam's apple. He didn't know Mina was thirsty. The end?
That was awesome. First of all, I love the title. I think the detail, I really love the medical horror aspect of that you integrated in there, like the everything with the like failed Victorian era blood transfusion. That was a really, really nice touch.
Thank you.
Beatrice, I think you're up next.
Unmute. There you go.
Oh, sorry about that. I'll put the your piece.
No, I muted myself. It's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a piece published by Maudlin House last year. Because I have a column there that's for horoscopes. So we did a Halloween horoscope, right? So your Halloween horoscope by Elsa Rain Oaks. Aries, March 21st to April 20th. I am afraid no one will get your Halloween costume of choice this year, Aries. While your obscure knowledge of cult horror movies is impressive, it is also quite useless, unless, of course, you use it as a means of obtaining self-validation, in which case you really do not want anyone to understand your references, and this is all a ploy in order to further reassure yourself of your own cultural superiority. If that is the case, however, more than one person shall get your costume, your worst nightmare. Scope of horror, a self-referential existence devoid of meaningful interaction. That's a 5. Taurus, April 21st to May 20th. After impulsively purchasing a not so funny in hindsight poo emoji
Beatrice, I'm really sorry. You got muted by accident there when I let some new people into the chat. I really apologize. If you want to unmute yourself, and I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. Sorry about that.
Where did I stop, though? When did I get muted?
You just start over. It was near the beginning, okay? I really apologize.
Okay. Okay, so horoscope. Aries, March 21st to April 20th. I'm afraid no one will get your Halloween costume of choice this year, Aries. While your obscure knowledge of cult horror movies is impressive, it is also quite useless, unless, of course, you use it as a means of obtaining self-validation, in which case you do not really want anyone to understand your references, and this is all a ploy in order to further reassure yourself of your own cultural superiority. If that is the case, however, more than one person shall get your costume, your worst nightmare. Scope of horror, a self-referential existence devoid of meaningful interaction. 5. It's a 5. Taurus, April 21st to May 20th. After impulsively purchasing a not-so-funny in hindsight poo emoji costume, you will panic once people start calling infantile. The important thing to do when that happens is take a deep breath and point out flaws in other people's costumes. Being infantile, after all, is better than being pretentious or obvious. Prepare a monologue about how you are actually dressed up as the Freudian concept of an anal phase. You might want to increment the excrement with Sigmund Freud glasses, or someone's mama. You're actually dressed up as someone's mama, or US President Donald J. Trump, or whatever else would most likely get a laugh. Alternatively, you could find someone who doesn't have a costume and give them a speaker or voice recorder in order to make your costume linguistically more ingenious. Scope of horror, you'll live, so that's a 2. Gemini, May 22nd to June 23rd. As Pluto catches up with you, Gemini, you'll be lucky to escape unscathed. This misfortune you must blame on one astronomer who rejected the rulings of the planets and declared, just like that, to hell with Pluto, for it be a planet no longer, said Mike E. Brown of Caltech University, casting a great curse on all Gemini born and bound like himself. Pluto, he forgets, is the king of the underworld, and every Hallows Eve it takes on its frightening Hades-shaped soul and all its pre-devils, who find mirth in thine disgrace, O sir. 'Tis time this downgrading of Pluto from planet to too small a planet be avenged by the forces of fate. The disenchantment it has caused to generations of peoples in all universe, and all due to a condescending, careless power play. Pluto has read Mike E. Brown's book, How I Killed Pluto and Why It Had It Coming, and has found it in very poor taste indeed. Pluto is very much alive and ready to prove it. This Halloween, Geminis, stay inside. Trust no one. Everyone stay inside. I wrote this last year, but everyone stay inside. The unearned, at times unjustified wrath and defensiveness of billions over a planetary demotion from over a decade ago has given this revenge plot the strength it needed. You are Pluto. We are Pluto. Scope of horror. You might pay the ultimate price for a mistake someone who shares your star sign has made. That's a 10. Not looking good for Geminis. Cancer, June 22nd to July 23rd. A relatively mellow week lies ahead of you, Cancer, as Pluto and Neptune are quite embarrassed over last week's inconveniences. They had miscalculated the Earth's circumference and erroneously posited that Mike E. Brown was a Cancer. Because of this diplomatic mishap, however, you will get to enjoy much free punch and avoid all things minorly disagreeable. Even as you run out of Halloween candy, more will mysteriously show up at your doorstep. I wouldn't eat it though, just give it away to the children. Scope of horror, a total treat. Leo, July 24th to August 23rd. Though we all wear masks all the time, this is truer of you. Isn't the most powerful costume you can wear, in a sense, your true self? Again, I wrote this last year. You can wear a mask over your true self just to not spread COVID. But your true self might be the scariest thing you can be for Halloween. This might be the scariest thing you can be for Halloween. Sincere. Scope of horror. Looming identity crisis. Postponed for later. 4. Virgo, August 24th to September 23rd. Don't be alarmed if you fall down a black hole into a new, seemingly better reality, Virgo. Don't get too comfortable either, as the universe will soon realize the mistake it's made and promptly correct it. You will grieve the alternate timeline, but eventually learn to live with it as you minimize the whole event and pretend to yourself it was all a dream, as a way to convince yourself you haven't completely lost your mind. Incidentally, you'll get déjà vu from that alternate world every single day for the rest of your life. Scope of horror, short but destabilizing period of cosmic disturbance. 7. Libra, September 24th to October 23rd. A great discovery awaits you, Libra. This Halloween, you will find out exactly what happened to the dinosaurs and why. There is nonetheless a catch. You can never tell anyone, as they will never believe you. In order not to become an idiosyncratic pariah in academia, you must keep this utmost secret to yourself, even if you know in your heart it could save the human race from the same destiny met by those ancient birds of prey. In other news, avoid the color blue in all areas of life, including the sky. Scope of horror, unwarranted and eternal Cassandra curse. 9. Scorpio, October 24th to November 22nd. Halloween is a Scorpio, as you know, which means universal permission to get into whatever shenanigans you may be up for. Tricks are your treat, and in the reign of chaos, Scorpios are its not so secret agents, allowed to egg their enemies' doors, listening to hard rock and running away in stilettos, at least till midnight. You shall succeed at whatever task you put yourself up to without even trying, which in turn will make others afraid of you and whatever you are capable of. Ride that stride, Scorpio, unless of course you have something in the house of Gemini, in which case stay home given the increased likelihood of a heightened bladder. Scope of horror, you are that who is feared, and happy birthday. 1. Sagittarius, November 23rd to December 21st. This Halloween, Sagittarius, you will come to the realization that all ghosts date from Victorian times and back. As a result, you will be desperately searching for slightly younger ghouls and poltergeists, perhaps from the 20s or 90s or last year. After not finding any specimens, you will be forced to face the fact of a worldwide ghost extinction event. Has science killed the ghost by exposing its mysticism? Or have people simply grown tired of living and been opting out for death after death instead of ghostification? You must get to the bottom of this and impede the ghostly species of dying out for good. Scope of horror, uncovering the ghastly, unpleasant extinction of ghosts. 3. Capricorn, December 22nd to January 20th. As Saturn approaches the Earth's orbit in spirit, your most Saturnine dispositions will flourish and keep you from celebrating properly. Stay away from the internet, as you will probably tweet something factually incorrect, which will make you sound super dumb, prompting a public shaming. Also, your hamster will fall off its wheel and die pretty soon, so maybe get a replacement hamster. Scope of horror, metaphorical lynching on the horizon plus R.I.P. Hamish. 8. Aquarius, January 21st, February 19th. The riot you led last week is now old news, and no one cares about the cause anymore. It is quite possible that all those people were only doing it because you threatened and insulted them. They didn't. Some of them might dress up as you for Halloween. Do not take it personally, since that is what they want you to do. There is, however, a silver lining. Precisely because it is Halloween, you'll be able to get away with some of the threats simply by dressing up as some ludicrous villain. If the action backfires and you're reported to HR, you can just tell them you were doing a character bit. Scope of horror. Realizing your coworkers think you are a callous monster and probably have a group chat without you. 6. Pisces, February 20th to March 20th. Due to the bad moon rising, it's quite likely you will be mugged by a bandit in a Mustang. Whether it is you, the bandit, or both in the Mustang remains ambiguous. Either way, I would advise you to stay away from Mustangs and turn left if given the choice, just as an extra precaution. Moreover, do not under any circumstances play the song Bad Moon Rising by Creedence Clearwater Revival. It'd be foolish to tempt fate. If you enter a store, a friend's house, or an Uber and the song is being played, tell them to shut it down immediately. Scope of horror. Caution is advised near Mustangs. That's a 5. That's it.
That was hilarious.
Thank
I
you.
love how many of the details actually hit harder this year than they would have last year.
Right?
That was some borderline prophetic shit right there. The phrase worldwide ghost extinction, I'm tongue-tied, but worldwide ghost extinction event, if I could speak, is like, that's a beautiful turn of phrase. That's amazing. And it looks like the chat was having a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, I didn't see, I saw them talking, but I was focused on reading.
Yeah, no, it's the same way when I'm reading. As soon as it's done, I go back and read to see what people said, you know?
Yeah.
What the hecklers had to say.
That
All
was
right,
very
thank you
good.
so much for reading.
Yeah.
Jake, you're up next.
Before you go, Jake,
Oh,
I think we might have a troll in the chat. I'm not 100% sure.
do we? Oh, I see. Hard to say. We'll wait to see if they do anything disruptive on the stream. That's usually
Fair
my.
enough.
I think Pilliter already left, but
Oh, well, they're
their
gone.
name's all grayed out.
I guess
okay.
they kind of blew their load and got the hell out then. Kind of low level
Fair enough.
troll.
That's what I do.
All right, Jake, it's all yours.
So first, I would like to say that this grease makeup is going into this eye, and it really hurts really bad. So
That's just going to help your delivery, man.
I know. I just
Use
want you
it,
guys to
use
know
it.
that I'm feeling
got
actual
this.
pain right now while this is happening. All right. This piece is called The Girl from the Cabin at the Edge of the Woods. Across the fields, down the river, and just outside the forest, there was a small village where a girl laid in bed waiting and listening. She listened to her family sleeping, her father snores, and the soft breaths of her mother and infant brother. She listened to the leaves toss and scrape against one another outside. She listened to the wind crawl its way through the cracks in the cabin walls and waited to hear a voice. A voice that only came on this night of the devil, the night before All Hallows Eve. A voice that she heard riding on the wind as her eyes began to close. Come, girl. Come and remember, a promise made must be a promise kept. Her eyes watered and her heart pounded. She slowly moved from under her blanket and stood in the darkness of her family's cabin. The voice came again. Yes, girl. Come and remember. The girl moved lightly across the room, the cold October wind biting at the soles of her feet as she searched for silent footing with each step. Looking down at her brother, swaddling, small, and asleep with the Lord's peace, she reached into the basket and pulled him to her chest. The infant stirred in her arms. She let out a soft shh as she stepped to the door, lifted the handle from its cradle, and stepped out into the wind, hearing the voice. Yes, girl, you remember. Come. The moonlight felt like a new dawn. She ran, holding her baby brother close as the leaves crunched and rustled surrounding her, as if she were being set upon by hostile whispers from all sides. The infant began to cry as the girl took leaping strides through the night toward the edge of the forest. The cabin far in the distance, its silhouette barely visible against the murderous blue of the night sky as she sunk into the darkness of the woods. She moved through the limbs and brush, her nightdress and skin tearing as she tumbled forward, making her way to the cave she'd found during the summer. The baby boy screamed as the branches slapped and scraped against them. Out beyond where eyes could stretch, hidden behind the ghostly clusters of birch trees, she heard the sticks snapping beneath someone's steps. It kept pace as she traveled, first on her left and then also on her right, unseen shepherds corralling her with the noise of their movement and the voice, Yes, girl, you've come. Her eyes focused on the small clearing in front of her and the cave on the other side. Faint orange light flickered from deep within. The wind broke through the trees in a gust. Leaves and dirt spiraled from the ground, then blew into the opening of the cave. The girl stepped into the clearing and the voice spoke, this time not a whisper on the wind, but rough like peeling bark echoing from within the cave. Inside, girl. Bring us the promise. Then another, much the same. Yes, the promise, girl. It has been made. It must be kept. The girl looked down at her baby brother, still swaddled tightly. His face was wet with tears and his screams, falling dead against the thick forest around them. She ducked her head and moved inside the cave towards the light, pulled her brother close, and squeezed sideways through a narrow opening in the rocks. She crouched low, her feet sinking into mud and decaying leaves, and stepped around a sharp corner that opened up into a large room. Yes, yes, girl, cackled a gaunt crone as she hopped up and down, her naked body jostling about, breasts long and deflated, covered with mud and slapping against her skin. Promises kept. Welcome, groaned the other, her body also naked, but much the opposite of the former, rolls of fat at every angle, open pustules covering the stretch-marked scoured stomach that hung down to her thighs. She grunted, waddling towards the girl, reaching out for the baby. Give it to me, it is time. In the center of the room, a cauldron stewed, the fire below it, but the fire below cracked as it licked up the sides. Embers popped out across the room, dashing against the cave floor and walls before going dark. The girl handed the sobbing infant to the fat one, who placed her swollen, filthy hand over its face, muffling its screams. Hush, hush, she said before giving the baby a violent shake and then cackling loudly as it screamed louder. The girl grimaced as she stepped to the cauldron. The thin one walked to a small shelf, gathered several jars, some leather pouches, a dagger, and a thick book that appeared to be bound in leather. She set the items on a wooden block near the cauldron before turning to the girl and handing her the dagger. Its handle was made of antler. The blade looked rusty and stained, but appeared sharp. The girl nodded, and the thin one smiled as she turned back, picking up the book. The fat one unwrapped the baby and held it above the cauldron by its foot. It writhed and screamed as the steam rose, scalding its delicate skin. The unholy wail of its pain filled the room. The thin one opened the book, flipped through several pages, smiled a black-toothed grin, and reached out, grabbing the baby's other foot, holding him spread above the boil. She began to read from the book. Hell's promise made, hell's promise kept. The devil's night the child wept. Baptized blood, an innocent heart. A new system made when families part. Raise the blade, end the life. Innards spill, become the devil's wife. The girl raised the dagger and plunged it down into the baby's scrotum. Its scream became breathless as she leaned, gripping the handle with two hands, and pulled the blade forcefully through its belly. The screaming stopped as she continued to saw the knife back and forth as fluids and parts fell into the boiling cauldron. When the cut was finished, she reached inside the cavity and tore out a walnut-sized heart. The women let out guttural orgasmic moans when they saw it, and let the hollowed-out, limp body of the baby boy fall into the stew. The thin one continued to read. Sisters taste the heart stolen, for Satan's pledge, a masticated token. Each of the three passed the tiny heart around, taking a bite of the soft meat and chewing. They let the blood and saliva fall from their lips before the fat one spit her mouthful into the cauldron. The flames at the bottom flashed green. The girl did the same, and finally the third, before she continued from the book. The heart has been spit. Now add to the brew the head of a bat by the count of 2. She reached into one of the leather pouches and removed 2 dried bat heads, tossed them into the mix, pulled a tightly wound bundle of sticks off a table, and kept reading. Concoct this brew, let Satan's power flow, into the cauldron a faggot throw, she said, throwing the sticks in. Hold on, said the girl. Did you just say the F word? The thin one gave her a confused look. It's... that is not okay. Like, I get that we're witches, or rather you guys are witches, and I'm gonna be one, but it's like really not okay to toss around that word. I mean, yeah, intersectionality amongst marginalized people and everything, but come on. The fat one spoke up. What? That's what it's called. It's what's written in the dark book. His blasphemous majesty's unholy tome of power. Well, we need to be the change that we want to see in the world. So maybe it's time to stop doing things the old way. I mean, like, how long ago was that thing even written? Like 100 years ago? In the days before Cain, in the days after Cain, when our Dark Lord scrawled the words himself using the blood of Abel, said the thin one. Okay, so like a really long time ago. I get it. I'm just saying I think that's maybe it's time for an update. You want to update the unholy sacraments written in the blood of Abel by Satan himself. The girl waved a finger at the crones, blood and gelatinous matter splattering across the cave walls. I can't seriously be the only one who isn't cool with that kind of language. It's oppressive. We're witches. We're crones. Evil slaves of Satan, child-murdering witches. I guess I thought that this was just more of like a crunchy, vibey, Earth Mom kind of coven thing. My bad. We literally fuck goats, said the fat one. Ew, seriously? That is definitely problematic. There's no way that they can consent to that. Look, this is more awkward than when I tried to be vegan and then found out that feta was off limits, but I've got to stay true to what's right. I'm canceling the dark book. It's bound in human flesh, and when burnt, its ashes form anew. You cannot cancel it. The girl scoffed. Wait until Twitter finds out about it. End.
Oh my God, that was... You know what? I'm thinking of this piece and I'm thinking of open mic, and you know what really sells this shit is like your devotion to the piece before like the punchline comes. And I think it was true in open mic too. Like there's such a but especially true in this piece, there's such a devotion to like the really gritty, awful details of like this kind of horror story, and then it takes a right fucking turn. And that was It was just really funny, man. It was hilarious.
Thank you. Thank you. It
Yeah,
was fun to write.
that was really incredible. I actually have to go, but it was so good I couldn't leave. I told my boyfriend to fuck off for a second.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah, I really
Um,
dig the witch voice and the aesthetic.
Yeah, the delivery, man, that in terms of like that was easily for and away like one of the most like profane examples of just like sheer devotion to delivering the piece that I've seen yet.
Yeah, I figured it's kind of a, like if you can make it through grotesque child murder and then hear that word and you got to stop for a second and ask yourself which one kind of made you feel more uneasy when you first heard it, and then ask some questions about yourself, right?
Right. I'll be honest. I was there. I was like, yeah, and then I was like, wait. All right, B-boy Brandon, you're up next. Speaking of like devotion to character and presentation,
I can't believe I have to follow that.
You got this, man.
All right. So this is going to be done in 3 parts. So bear with me. The video will be off for the first 2, and then it will come in, and you'll understand why when we get there. In the beginning, there was nothing. That was how everything was intended to remain. You see, the primordial creator had always felt that the pinnacle of existence was solitude. That's quite the paradox. To be the beginning and the end of all things, the Alpha and Omega, you must be the only thing in existence at least twice. But for the Alpha to be true, then the Omega demands that you annihilate everything that you had ever made. We were a fluke. Some half-formed thought form that the primordial creator mused upon for an instant after a waking silent dream had drifted together and from the dust in the corner, forgotten about and ignored and allowed to grow. Our arrogance is assuming that we were anything more than an afterthought when we aren't even that. We're drifting on a forgotten remnant of a half-remembered fragment of a half-conscious dream that wasn't even worth scribbling down on whatever the cosmic equivalent of a fast food napkin crumpled up in a trash can might be. But we were not alone. There were others cast aside and left to linger, forgotten just as profoundly into the wasteland of the physical galaxy as we were, but confined to some metaphysical space between the stars. Formed of the same cosmic dust that we were, stirred to life by the flames of the stars, frozen solid in blocks of ice, swallowed up by a constant collection of dust particles that gained a gravity like the breaking point of a fragile human mind. They have many names and many faces. Titans, Jotnar, whatever you want to call them. They're all real, and it was our fear of the natural world that made them into monsters. See, we were the anomaly among anomalies. As our world formed from the dust in the primordial creator's corner, we formed from the microbes within the dust. And as that dust rolled and roiled and tumbled and turned, we were tied and tested and somehow survived. And those ancient beings trapped in the cycle of change felt our presence. And somewhere between eternal and our own transient temporary existence, where their minds met ours, something else happened. Human thoughts and dreams met with the salient cast-offs of the creator's minds, and the gods were born. All the power of their immortal progenitors with all the failings of the mortals from whence they were birthed. If the Titans terrified us, then the gods toyed with us. If we had realized then what we would now, maybe we'd be better off today. Instead of recognizing that the shift of power swung both ways just as Zeus's cock on a stroll through Olympus's bathhouses, we allowed ourselves to get thoroughly fucked over. They have ruled over us since recorded history because we have allowed them to do so. They have been our masters because we have made them our masters. But they knew. They knew something we didn't know, but that we would come to embrace slowly over the centuries. They knew that as we naked apes grew smarter, we would rely on their superstition less and less. They knew that as we became enlightened, the mysteries we had allowed them to embody would no longer be mysterious. We wouldn't need a name or a face or a persona for any of those things because we'd realize that they were our constructs and ours alone. And I'll let you all in on another little secret of the universe here. That primordial creator never gave a shit about us. Our cosmic insignificance has never changed. And yet since the fall of the old gods, we've given it 1,000 names. Whether you want to say God, or say Yahweh, or say Allah, or invoke any of the myriad of other assigned identities, we absolutely mean nothing to it. And all of our prayers are just lies. And so is the thought that the Creator could be a knowable thing. See, the gods got desperate when we started to peel back the curtain of their little puppet show. And so they all came together, striking a chord, one group at a time, spread the myth of a monotheistic world to seem more plausible to the expanding minds of humanity. Why do you think that the Roman Empire was so driven to expand the way that they did? Conquer the people who clung to the weakening gods and make them bow down just as their gods were made to bow down and join the collective. Bought them a few thousand years, I'll give them that much credit. Enlightenment wasn't the only thing that broke their hold on us, not by a long shot. Science began their fall and greed completed it. We worship money now. Our new gods are green, gold, and silver, and the old gods are desperate to remain relevant. The church is nothing more than a network of chains trying and failing to hold mankind down. The gods are weakening. The gods are starving. The gods are vulnerable. The gods claim that it was by their hands that the Titans and others were imprisoned. What they ignore in these tales is that it was by our belief that they were able to do so. See, belief is power for them. The Titans and the Jotnar and their counterparts across the world don't need mankind. We're nothing more than insects to them, fleas that might warrant an idle scratching from time to time, but are quickly forgotten about moments later. But the gods, they need us just as surely as houseplants need water. And some of them are as fickle as a ficus that just got moved to a new corner of your living room. We never needed to put a name to fire. We never needed to personify the stone. We never needed to put a face to the biting wind. But we put a name to love. We personified war. We put a face to wisdom. We made them. And now, one by one, we unmake them. Enlightenment wasn't the only thing that broke their hold on us, not by a long shot. Science began their fall, greed completed it. We worship the money now. Our new gods are green, gold, and silver, and the old gods are desperate to remain relevant. Kill the church. Kill your gods. Kill your greed. Place your faith in the only choice that you have. Place your faith in yourselves. Embrace the heat death of know it, and ascend. Kapimo Otelok. Yeah, go ahead. Ashatreandobix. Guansba. Alar. Blansk. Guansbga. Asha. Kuazb. Ah, Madreax. Kating. Ah, Kask. Lrazd. Ah, Dripa Zodino. Dorzu. Lrazd. Ah, Kuazb. Ka. Ah, Kans. Asha. I am always watching. I am always waiting. I am always there. I have always been there. I will always be there. I am the spark of every cell division. I am the environmental pressure. I am the adaptation. I am the primordial soup from whence you came. I am the urge that led to the crawling onto the shores of Pangea. I am the tectonic force that broke the lands apart. I am the sun. I am the rain. I am the ice. I am everything that came before you. I am everything that will remain long after you are gone. I am everything that you are. I am everything that you fear. I am the quickening pulse. I am the shortened breath. I am the desperate gasp for air. I am the stillness in the dark. I am fornication. I am exaltation. I am the tension that stiffens your pricks and wets your wicks. I am every gasp and every little death. I am every high. I am every low. I am every ebb and every flow. I am fixation. I am everything that you thirst for. I am everything that you hunger for. I am everything that you obsess over. I am the teeth that gnashed at your heels. I am the venom that withered your limbs. I am the disease that crippled you. I am what makes you. I am the sting of a fresh cut. I am the ache in old wounds. I am the lingering agony of broken bones. I am natural selection, and I am everything that made you what you are. I am everything that will unmake you for your complacency. I am what you are. I am what you will never be. I am every success. I am every failure. I am every waking reminder that you will never dominate the world around you. I am the hurricane. I am the earthquake. I am the volcanic eruption. I am every natural disaster that reminds you of your frailty. I am the magma in the veins of this world. I am the very trembling pulse of the earth's core. I am the question. I am the answer. I am the invocation. I am the elements. I am the mystical. I am the scientific. I am the concrete evidence. I am the unknowable. I am the secret behind the meaning of life itself. I am the purpose that moves you. I am the desperate rise and the anguishing fall. I am the space between. I am vibrant. I am lifeless. I am the revel in the doldrums. I am the hungry ghosts in the darkness. I am everything that is waiting for you. I am death. I am sorrow. I am regret. I am longing. I am mourning. I am emptiness. I am the endless void that will consume you. I am every reminder that you will one day be forgotten. I am endless. I am the one true God. I am eternal. I am the devourer of all things. I am the perpetuation of entropy. I am the inevitable end of everything.
Damn.
I didn't want to say anything because I wasn't sure if that was the end or like a silence, but if there was another movement coming. But, oh man, you gotta show us the costume. You gotta show us
That
the
is
costume.
the completion. All right, I'll let me knock off this filter real quick.
Yeah, that was great. The fucking transparency shit with that filter too was incredible. I don't know. Oh, there we go.
Here, let me get the lights back on.
Oh man.
Like
I
said,
have a new
layers to
religion
this.
now.
Oh wow.
Holy
man.
shit.
That's impressive.
Thankfully, I wrapped up just as the strap started to loosen, so that actually worked out nicely.
Oh wow. That's a fucking, that is an amazing costume. Now you painted that, I know you said this last week, I think, but you painted
Yeah.
the mask yourself, right? And built it
Yeah.
yourself or something?
Yep, every single step.
God damn. Oh, holy shit. Oh, that was great. That was great.
I want to say that the that reading had some parts of it. The first piece there before the Enochian had powerful Doom 3 found recording, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, that filter was amazing.
So,
Why'd you
Rudy,
think it?
you're actually up next, as long as you're on camera here. So, Misery Tourism Zone here.
Roger that.
Now, this is a piece we haven't published yet, right?
No, it's kind of a continuation of the piece I read last week. The one, as I had pitched it last week, it's a setting where all men become cosplaying rapists at night and women fight them with kung fu. That's the pitch for the setting, the micro pitch, I guess, if you will.
That's the elevator pitch?
That's your elevator
Imagine
pitch.
having to give that pitch inside an actual elevator with a person who had to wait until the next floor to leave. Okay,
Right.
man, it's all yours.
All right. Yeah, my mic's kind of fucked up, but I will see what I can do here. I'll try it. Can you still hear me now? Because I minimized the thing.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Great. This piece is called Women in Cages. Solutions. Nighttime San Francisco is washed in pink rays as the strategically belligerent sirens attached to Alcatraz's lighthouse tower beckon every Klansman to come dash himself against the rock. Electronic eyes allow the penitentiary of legend to safely tiptoe around the urban sprawl before we park it and raise hydraulic stilts, hoisting its girth skyward and casting the Tenderloin in moonlit shadow. Here it commences its Twilight House wafery, I think that's how you say it, vacuuming up man-shaped tumbleweeds using a big tube that moves like something animated by Disney's entertainment division, as opposed to its Fantasia Quantum R&D sector. Like a hungry caw hankering for an exotic meal, the tube snakes through trap houses and into parks filled with hostile architecture. Those windblown transients who escape the long arm of the straw scatter in anticipation of the inverse high noon that we bring with us. Mission start, 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I trudge down a narrow steel bridge overlooking the command center as I finish up my smoke break. White noise in my earpiece crossfades into a static rainbow as operational chatter picks up, each query and confirmation laden with the timbre of a different dialect. I give it the old Fonzie love tap to clear up the static signal, or to clear up the signal, and now I'm immersed in a pool of familiar voices. Most of the discussion revolves around a calculus with obnoxious spatial and ethical variables. How do we deliver a no-knock warrant through the reinforced siding of Pink Triangle Shrine Condominium number 14, Night Fortress of the infamous Ninja Lord Roger Corman, in such a way as to incapacitate him without causing death or undue trauma, lol. After 3 separate calls to Raytheon's Consumer Support Division, it's decided that this is impossible. With our solution glasses on, we can see Roger through the walls of the building raping one of his catamites. My Kyriarch and I are stoked, because without the warrant, we'll have to physically restrain him before arrest. Battle. I train hard for this. Her mind is probably filling with images of our platoon Naruto running up the crimson steel of the condo's outer walls, crossing between beams that frame the auto-tinning glass. We're synchronized, little spaceships translating across a manageable 2D game of life grid until the moment we add another dimension by crashing through the window of the Ninja Lord's living space. We'll catch him, cock out, then swarm like killer bees until he's KO'd. This is the hope anyway. Get ready to deploy, she says with a wink, pressing the button on the command console that releases sleep aid into the cells of Ninja we've already captured this evening. I quiver. Problems. The locker room is a weird grotto underneath D block. The 2 initiates changing here frantically salute me, half dressed, and then stare because they're waiting for me to live up to my usual hip officer from an existential war movie vibe by saying, "Don't do that." Distracted, I let them stare. My thoughts are on some Dalen Earnhardt shit tonight. In my head, I'm conjuring drawings from field manuals, carotid restraints for use on enhanced males, placing myself into the bodies of those hulking muscular perps so that I can better comprehend how jiu-jitsu techniques work. Lie. I'm recalling grainy surveillance photos of Roger Corman's yucky dad bod and engorged genitals, sometimes wishing the latter were my own, considering how I would wield the might of T and Chi for good, lamenting how close my thoughts are to the true-hearted men misconception that got Boromir's dumb ass laid in a funeral boat. I'm anthropomorphizing my Q-binder, a quantum realm of phenomenal cosmic size that houses my itty-bitty titties, as some kind of symbiotic Oni that grants martial prowess for the promise of being able to nibble on conical AA nipples all day. This gender mind circus occurs every time I have to put on the blue robe, which is really just a dress that you wear nanoskins underneath, which are really just blue stockings with more smarts in them that interface with your faux hunters, which are really just black ballerina flats that let you scale vertical surfaces. Bah. We don't go through one of the windows. Too risky, and many beaded eyes are watching. A local clan, 36 motherfuckers, is doing a recon for Roger Corman, tracking Guardian movements and informing on rival Ninja. The rooftop Starbucks has a skylight that we could enter through, but my Kyriarch nixes the idea. Too much agitation and shattered electropyrex, she says, joking that she only breaks glass ceilings when they're above her. She's Navajo. It's the stairs, then, says one of my teenage initiates in a jinxing, foreshadowy way that gets on my nerves more than it should. You don't fucking know that. I snap at her inside the sandboxed echo chamber of my mind, not quite sure what that is or why she shouldn't know. I powerlift, run 2 vertical miles a night, and have an intimate relationship with veggies, the safe for work kind. By the time we reach the 24th floor, I feel so great that I offer to kick the door in to give the 2 exhausted Siamese twins carrying a ram a moment to recuperate before the fight. My Kyriarch, out of breath despite the fact that she levitated half the way up, approves. I wind up and unleash a fucking fury on the heavy oak glamour composite Lowe's premium gatekeeper, caving it inwards with the first roundhouse and knocking it off the hinges with the second. The twins squander their respite, staring into their navel-tethered placentinals, debating which watermark will help their battle footage climb highest on Facebook when they post it later. Fucking centenarians. Here we go, quips the drama queen who were in my ire earlier. Okay, that's it. Fucking muted. We rush the room. I'm the first to experience the gaudy mix of purple and crimson lounge aesthetic furniture with frilly trim, and the too clean bloom lighting that keeps cavorting shadows in the corner like disobedient school children. A massive penis-shaped incense cone is ablaze here, performing its best imitation of the Yosemite fires for our lungs. We've intercepted a dance party. Sam Cooke's Tennessee Waltz reverberates inside the walls while harem boys twerk or shiver, and we merge with it, fanning out into a formation that matches woman to man in a kind of domestic violence mambo. This melee is a set of partnerships, each a fraught exchange of hands, feet, and convenient objects. It becomes a swing, variety and mix-ups, highs and lows coming fast. Change is a constant. The swinging is where I thrive. Tool-assisted kung fu, data-driven piss poundings. A pound of flesh exchanged for a half kilo of circuitry allows me to punish all hesitation. I dwell inside OODA loops. I wallow in the instant. Right now is just me punching teeth into throats. Bloody gums, gummed up processes. Burgundy is outstripping crimson in the temporally ambiguous vortex of my tunnel vision. The climax of every battle is me without a body, formless me, an elemental manifestation of violence. But time and flesh are slowly returning. Fatigue, stalemate, positions, values. Everybody here is in the throes of deprivation with a capital D. Sweating, bleeding, leaking piss. Our array of conspicuously able bodies is being reduced to a single heap of human wreckage. Eventually, this melee is a polycule, everyone contiguous and exhausted. It's him, the foreshadowing initiate screeches at some point, Since I had her muted, it takes a few seconds for me to hear her voice over the growling, groaning, and moaning. It turns out that I could have really used the dramatic dun dun dun. I don't notice Roger Corman approaching. I apparently missed the bright chi gathering around his body, even though our battle has destroyed almost all of the lights. I don't get the chance to cry out before I turn my head directly into his fist sucker punching me, unleashing the brutal caged heat technique known for making its victims literal prisoners inside their own bodies. Damn it. Routines. Consciousness exists behind a pair of frustratingly gynoid doe eyes, staring up at the ceiling. Behind those is a brain soaking estrogen and adrenaline. Inside that is a panopticon with a silent warden, a mind's eye, and inside that miserable circle of hell, a row of cell blocks. One of them contains a cell that holds my current cell. But does this internal realm continue endlessly, fractally inside of this me? Is another ninja waiting somewhere to clock me, ignoring double jeopardy? Honestly, I hope not. I want void, null, nothingness, piped in through my nose to replace all organs. I want automation. I want no thoughts, I think. Confusing tale. A dingy cell is divided between me, myself, and I. Me is me. Myself is some guy. I is the face me sees when I takes me or myself down a peg with acidic criticism or self-destructive dysphoria shit. All of that sounds like sort of Cockney, but no one telling this still is English. Sorry, Mr. Dickens, and frankly, sorry to anyone else listening. Institution tale. The corrections officer who we've named Cuntface is threatening an extraction because she was catcalled and thought that it was one of us. It's hard to hear with all the noise. Cuntface is a clitoris for a face that kind of recedes behind dark flesh-covered hood. It must suck for her to have to leave her cushy home in the outside and spend all day in here. She's diligent, that's for sure. She reminds me of myself a lot. Some things we said about her. What a fascist. Laws suck. She's a bitch. I would probably rate her a low 4, said while I was asleep. Pigtail. I cut myself in the shower, a dumb conflict over scented hair care products. I was just
Oh, Rudy, I think you're having some internet issues. You just went out and you're not muted. So, oh. No.
oops.
Oh,
Oh, what happened?
you just froze up for a second. I think you had some connectivity issues.
Oh, I'm back, I think. I can hear you.
Oh, good. We lost you at I cut myself in the shower.
Gotcha.
Okay.
A dumb conflict over scented hair care products. I was restrained, 30 days in the hole. Rat fuck tale. I's making statements to Cuntface about myself, implicating me. I sometimes gets rewarded for contraband with it for this. Endorphin cigs. Industriousness tale. Core craft suits me, honest laboring, making useful strides to help others. It makes me happy to have the guards respect me. I opines about me every day in the mess. Just an ass kisser with an authority fetish. I's probably right. Beyond scared straight tale. Younger facsimiles of me are here today as part of a mandatory youth intervention program. A younger me, blustering for the camera, says, "Mother, beep that. This killer always does what she means. Beep with me," to a guard. I says something like, "Shut the beep up, punk. You better snap out of this phase real quick." I looks frail, standing next to a younger me who doesn't have any fucks to give. But I speaks up and the room gets dark and quiet and blood sounds are in the wall. Some Galadriel shit. Younger me looks towards her elder. Me. Just don't get sucker punched in some cum-stained flophouse. The 1 hour that's not tale. A sand timer on a screen counts down until the end of rec. It doesn't show us the minutes or seconds. That kind of granularity is reserved for corrections only. The sky is here. There are clouds above me that look like Schwarzenegger's torso. Need to pump iron to get that corridor body. Corridor is the only season here. The hourglass figures that are about 3,000. The hourglass figures that there are about 3,000 grains left for a workout. Gravity erodes motivation, as do thoughts about the eons of time on the inside that await me tonight in bed after masturbation and therapeutic educational program. Wish there was a way to test out of this whole shitty epoch, but space-time is curved, and me too, unfortunately. Resolutions. I will re-enter the world as an altered beast, my nervous system shouting, "Rise from your grave," and it will be blurrier than before. I will sit up, push this ninja off of me, then find the strength for fight or flight. I will come back another night. Mission end. Roger Corman remains vital, invigorated by his victory. Ugh. I come too, and he's coming too. Yeah, that's the end.
That was so good, man. I love your world building. I really do. This is actually unusual because I haven't talked to you about this piece. I read it earlier today, but I think one thing that really like struck me about this, and I think this is true of your other pieces in this series, is the way that you like take the tropes and expectations of like exploitation films and turn them on their head. Like I love like how you've got all the exploitation tropes in there for like the women in prison movies, but they're totally subverted and they're totally twisted every which way. And also the way it becomes kind of like the way you work with the kind of like prisoner in your own body thing when it comes to people, when it comes to like, you know, issues related to transgender, and you have a transgender protagonist who becomes a literal prisoner within her own body. There's so much great shit going on here. It's incredible.
Yeah, I wore this costume just for that one. As you notice, I'm usually an anime avatar. I wore this costume just for this.
Is that like a 70s tracksuit?
No, it's not. It's just myself. That's it. That's the idea.
It's your okay, I got you. I wasn't sure if you were trying to get like the 70s exploitation thing in on another level there.
No.
What was
This
your
doesn't.
star sign? What was your star sign? Was it the one where it was honesty?
It was Scorpio.
So do whatever you want?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thanks for the feedback.
Great shit as usual, man.
Yeah, I love the like sci-fi aspects too. It's like you balance like the nerdy world building stuff with the humor so well, and it just like it just works so awesomely the whole way through. I love like the whole vibe of this kind of thing. I don't know what you call it. I mean, I guess I would call it like sci-fi or kind of like transgressive sci-fi or something, but it's so unique. It like defies all genre. I love it.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, thanks a lot. That means a lot. I just call it fantasy. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Derek, you're up next. I'll put the link in the chat.
All right.
Oh, there you go. Oh, Jesus.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I'm digging the costume. For a second there, I thought like you were actually bloody.
No, this is just freak my my son out, which it did. The phone rings in September 1979. My father did not speak to me. He sat in his faded blue recliner. I remember that, and watched Star Trek on Saturday nights. Other times he watched golf. I saw him reading Lawrence Block. Sometimes he would ask me to get him a beer or to stop running in the house, but he never spoke to me. I have a son now. He complains I talk too much. I'm constantly asking him how he's feeling. I know this is not totally healthy, and my wife helps me notice this when I do it too often. But son, my father did not speak to me. I sat in that house, which had the wood paneling and the door blinds always drawn so everything was drained of light for 16 years and watched him not speak to me. I heard him not speak to me. Of course I felt him not speak to me. You were not allowed to read this until you were much older. I looked for fathers everywhere. I stole, I cut, I lied, I cheated. I would take off all my clothes and ride around naked on the stage. The music was called Screamo. 9/11 hadn't happened yet. It's complicated. Your father was naked a lot, is what I'm trying to say. He was writhing around on the stage looking for something in the creases of the wood grain, his dick bleeding from the splinters. Your grandfather is never allowed to read this. 4 years before I was born, my father got a telephone call. It was his mom. My father was newly married to my mom, your grandmother. This is going to get complicated. We're going to have to do it another way. The phone rang one day in September of 1979. He went to pick up the phone. His mother was on the other line. Can you swing by and pick up the mail for me? I don't feel well. He was annoyed. His mother had not been feeling well a lot lately, and it seemed stupid to have to drive 25 minutes to get her mail when she could walk to it. He was 24 years old. 24. He was still a kid in so many ways. A kid with a new wife, but still a kid. He asked his wife if she wanted to grab some lunch and go for a ride. She said yes. They set off. I jumped off a roof accidentally on purpose while I was holding a Bloody Mary. The tomato juice stained my clothes. I broke my ankle. I drove my car into a telephone pole going really, really fast. And I did it completely on purpose because I was alone with my thoughts, and my thoughts were saying bad things. And I didn't want to be alone anymore. And I knew if I ran my car into a telephone pole, then a cop would have to come to the scene. This was before cell phones. I did this twice. They stopped for Chinese food before going to pick up the mail. He ordered sesame chicken, picked idly at food, and complained about the errand. We stopped for Chinese food. Is that what he sat there in the fading blue recliner and thought on a loop for all those years? A son was born and then another, and jobs came and jobs went. And the entire time he sat not speaking, his mind simmering in sesame chicken. Never had fucking Chinese food, I'll tell you that. He pulled into his mother's driveway. I'm not born yet, but I'm there too. I'm in the back seat. He walks to the mailbox. You're not born yet, but you're also there. You're in the back seat with me. I grew up in the South, specifically the suburbs of the South in the 1980s and 1990s. The language of depression, trauma, anxiety, and so forth, they hadn't reached us yet. I don't know why my dad didn't speak to me. I convinced myself there was something wrong with me, something horrible, like about me that he couldn't bear to face. And so like he stewed in silence, like silently wishing my existence away. The front door was locked, which was strange. He walked over to the side of the house, to the garage. Garage doors were not yet automatic. He bent down, grabbed the handle, and pulled the door open. The carbon monoxide hit him immediately, and he gasped for air. His mother was inside her car, dead, but she probably just looked asleep. I don't know what she was wearing, or if she had makeup on. I never asked, and I never met her. If he had not stopped for Chinese food, then she would not have had time to do it. She might have done it another time. It wasn't her first time trying, but she would not have been able to do it that day. Or she would have been caught by her son and new daughter-in-law in the act of trying to do the thing. She might have wanted to get caught. That might be what she wanted. I don't know. There wasn't a note. Pain is a time traveler. It is a constant, ever-present thing. So, too, is love. My dad loved me, but he couldn't speak to me. He was really sad. I love you. I talk too much. I'm really trying. My grandmother gave me her pain, her love, her red hair, her son who would not speak to me, and her story to tell, which is a gift and a burden, like all things. My dad is an old man now. We talk about Lawrence Block novels and Star Trek and golf. I don't care about any of those things, but I like talking to my dad. How are you feeling? You can tell me anything. You know that, right?
God damn.
Wow, that ending though. Wow, the way you looked at the camera, man, that performance was real. That was great.
Thanks, man.
That hit fucking hard. And I do appreciate the fact that, like, after a lot of really out there and, like, goofy and weird, scary stories today, that we have one, like, just instance of real, like, human horror. That, like, there's not, like, all of the shit, like, the surreal, supernatural shit that we pretend to be scared of. I don't think there's any, like, more anxiety-provoking thought than arriving just like a few minutes too late to keep a loved one from killing themselves. That Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that was 100% why I was like, I don't know if I want to read this tonight or not. I've got a ghost story, but it's not a typical, it's not a typical ghost story.
Yeah, no, that's exact. No, it's great. It's good that you did, because one thing that like I love about these is like the sheer variety of styles and works and approaches on display. Kind of the same thing with our submission themes, right? I'd be really fucking bored if every one of our like cosplay submissions was about something that happened at Comic Con. You know, you got to have a few that are totally coming at it from a different direction, and I think that Halloween has to be the same way, or else it's not interesting. You know, no, that was fucking fantastic.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought the real shit. People are way scarier than ghosts, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100 fucking percent. um, next up is Damien. Now, Damien sent me a message saying that he wasn't going to be able to read, but he had someone here to read an excerpt from his work for him. Is that right? I'm not sure who it is. um,
Hi, I'm Keyboard, and I'll be filling in for Damien today.
okay.
Loud in his house. So, okay. Wait, can I
Mhm.
on myself, or do you have to do that?
Sorry, what was that?
Can I turn on my camera, or do you have to do that?
Yes, you can. There should be a button right down there at the bottom to turn your video on in the lower left.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, I'm not used to Zoom.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, it's all yours.
Is my video okay, or not my video? My volume okay?
Your volume is 100% perfect. I hear you loud and clear.
Great. Okay. Deep breaths. My aimless mind wanders from the voices and then back to the video on my laptop. Faggots slamming meth in a parking garage and trading their infected loads. Even worse, they're proud of their disease. That's what gets me off. The video pauses, won't finish loading, so I close out of it and switch to another tab. More updates on a mass shooting. First female teenager that has committed a mass shooting and took out half of her school, over 300 other kids. How many children have ended up having their heads blown to pieces in it? How many bodies exploded in desolate hallways? When the bullet impacts the flesh, it causes limbs to rip apart. How long did she plan for this? You can find the footage online. Found it. I know that God is here with me, and I know that God is watching. The video comes to a cold stop, and I stare at the arrow that urges me to replay it. How could someone do something like that? Pulled the fucking trigger on that 10-year-old girl. Didn't even think about it as she squeezed it, all because she was bullied. Will the little girl have a little pink casket that her mutilated body is shoved into, and what will she look like a month after her death? I want to see the chest explosion and the maggots in her flesh. But most of all, I want to see this girl that killed all these children die too. I want to see her hanging from a crane, see her impaled through her pussy and out through her mouth on a spike, see her face when the judge tells her that she's getting the death sentence. That's the face I want to print off and come to and rip apart. Pink caskets and wasted tissues filled with cum. Now I understand what everyone sees in you. The words that those sick pedophiles said to me as they touched me scattered storm clouds inside my head. How could Bija resist? God fucking damn, you're one sexy little kid. The shyer and more innocent they are meaning, the better the victim. The louder they'll scream, the tighter their ass will be. Such a hot fucking face. Too bad your schizo meds gave you that disgusting belly. Otherwise, sexy little kid. Sexy little kid. Is it okay if I spend a few more years holding myself and crying under a bed as I mourn the childhood that I was never able to have? Can I? Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Why do I always gush into a frenzy of laughter after I finish sobbing for hours? This isn't funny, is it? Ha. Ha ha. Ha ha ha. Can we start over, Mother? Can I be a child again? What will we do? Oh, I know. Let's play Yahtzee. Pajama party. A tea for you and a tea for me. What else could the two of us do? Smooth jazz records with the kitchen windows open? A bubble bath and weekend cartoons? Dress up Barbies? Pineapple yogurt and coloring books? Stupid faggot piece of shit. I love you too. Off to school. See you. Don't you ever come back. Final cigarette. I light it when I hear the front door open, which tells me that Dylan's home. The buzz brings me back to reality and out of my role-playing fantasies of recreating my childhood. It's strange how quickly I can transform from being that unscathed boy and into this primal animal. My feet kick at the seashells on the bed as I reach towards the dresser to grab a bottle of lubricant and the same dirty towel that we've used countless times before. I situate myself comfortably in bed and suck hard on my cigarette before he opens the door. Eyes locked on each other. Attempting to match each other's dance in order to see who's the first to give in, Dylan drops his EMT jacket, leans his back against the wall, crosses his arms, and simply waits. How do you want it? He asks. All of the way? No holding back? No holding back, I regurgitate. But I want even more than that. I want to be able to wake up in pain over it, whatever it takes to make me feel human again. After I ash my cigarette, I step out of bed and move towards him. My eyes glance towards his jeans. His hands are tucked into his pockets as he tries to refrain from squeezing out his obvious erection. The back of his shirt is soaked with sweat from having exhausted his body all day. I try to squeeze the liquid out of it as I press the left side of my face against his chest. A part of me is crying. The other part wants to be torn apart limb by limb. When our lips meet, I nibble on the tip of his tongue to signal to him that it's okay to bite me. It's just one of the many codes that we've constructed over the past few weeks. You showered, he notes, in between placing hickeys all over my shoulders and neck. I'm going to eat you all up tonight. So, are you wearing it? The jockstrap? Let me feel it. I push him against the wall with all of my strength and embrace his skin, pulling at the hairs at his armpits, pinching his nipples with my fingernails, my tongue delving as far as it can, penetrate inside of his mouth. It's a fight I don't want to win. As soon as he has the button and fly of my pants undone, he trips me to the floor and swiftly pins my wrists down. Our gaze connects again. He twists and squeezes, just like I like it. Before he goes to tear off my shirt, I stop him. You're wearing too much shit. At least take off your shoes. And look at all the fucking mud you tracked into your brother's room. Shut it. He teases me before he does the unexpected, tosses his shoes at the door, stuffs both of his dirty white socks into my mouth, rips my shirt in half, and uses it to bind my hands behind my back. Don't fucking move or I'll fucking slam into you raw. Squeezes my cheeks, which are gnawing on the warm and rugged cotton, tosses my pants over an amplifier, and wastes no time to pull his cock out, spitting on it and beating off madly. We move to the bed. I'm on my back, dissociating and blindly following his straining orders. He pulls the socks from out of my mouth and fucks it, which does what it knows best to do, also naturally, as if it were made only for that sole purpose. My body flushes up like a moon drifting into the sun. It's all happening too fast for me to process anything, other than the chaotic cables in my brain splitting and jolting bolts of electricity through every corrupted cell inside of me. I exist so that he can sway my hair away from my eyes and rub his pre-cum across my busted lips. I exist so that I can feel his calloused hands forming a rotting mechanism around my neck. This fucking need and craving to suffer and be punished. Others pray for world peace or total extinction. This is the sole blessing that God grants me. Resolve. His hands loosen their grip as he goes to jerk off and gush streams of cum over my face. I lick up whatever I can before he scrapes it from my cheeks and forehead to taste it for himself. Then I'm flipped around and loosened up while my sweat dampens into the sheets. I don't even get the chance to pull on my dick and fuck with it, nor would he let me in the first place. Instead, my erection remains stiff and agitated in the jock while my balls tense up painfully. What I'd do to either have my testicles ripped off right now or to see myself come. Discipline. My ass squeezes around his prick as he pumps into me, grunting and flesh slapping. My hands restrained and pulling for release for the sole purpose of pretending that I'm being raped. He pulls on the jockstrap and pounds my pudgy white ass until I can see the tears streaming down my face and into the pillowcase. Don't fucking stop, I cry. He tells me to shut the fuck up, slaps my ass, slowly pulls himself out and rams it back in. holds himself up by his toes and fingertips, and uses all of his weight to hate fuck me. This would be better if I had another cock to choke on, to keep my retarded mouth shut. I can imagine it. Snot drooling down to my upper lip, ears ringing with tinnitus, stomach squirming, and my cock so ready to come but unable to. Now sit on it, he says, which I didn't expect, but he's still hard and the bullet head is purple and throbbing. Don't fucking touch yourself. Don't touch your fucking cock. He unties my wrists and I see it. The slit seems enraged, but I can tell that he doesn't enjoy breaking me. After this is over, he's going to hate himself for it, which will lead from one thing to another, also known as the endless cycle of shame and self-hatred that burns like a virus until suicide or murder becomes the last option. At one point in my life, I could never understand why people hated having the lights on during sex, but now I get it, because I can see my sloppy fat flesh bubble jiggling as I ride him. For what it's worth, he's just as ugly. The only difference is that his sin comes from the inside. I see it when he shuts his eyes and pierces the front of his bottom lip with his canine teeth. He wants me to be something different, that dead boy perhaps, and he wants it so fucking badly that he's bleeding for it. As for me, all I want is to become nothing more than this pulse of pleasure where nothing else, no pain or glancing at scars on the wrists, or dead best friends or traumatic flashbacks, ceases to exist. Never seen someone so into the act as he is right now. This must be what it's like to truly connect with somebody you love. Pretty, isn't it? He sets fire to the end of a blunt and puffs on it, one hand on my side and the other delicately running up my chest. I close my eyes and pretend I'm not ugly anymore. Lean forward and plant a kiss, trade mouthfuls of smoke, and feel him tremor his next load into me. Once it's over, everything unfolds ever so slowly again. The voices and gnawing sounds from outside. Is it the weather, or is it someone preying on me? Talking to myself under my breath while he paces and changes. I let him feel like shit for however long he needs to. I let him lay down behind me on the bed, and I listen to him strum chords for an hour, until he's found a somewhat decent tone to spread out into a 2.5-minute piece of music. My sense of reality muddies into a monochrome world. And that's the automatic light. Sorry about that. So what do you see? 3 worlds. First world, past, the car on fire. Second world, Dylan's simple expression as he searches for the right way to end the song. And the final world, snow. A world so frigid cold that it feels as if my throat is being cut apart. So you know how it ends. I drown the voices with alcohol and drink myself silly to put me to sleep, but it doesn't really matter because the nightmares find their way back and antagonize me. I'm trashed and drifting, being swallowed within an ugliness as vile as the basement. A smothering haze begins to form a dream world around me, in which I find myself running through the streets as someone chases after me. He has a kitchen knife with my name edged into it. His face is distorted and mutilated, just like I'll be when he catches up to me. Parts of the dream happen too fast for me to process, but the ending is always as clear as light gleaming through sheets of ice. We're in some warehouse, and he's approaching me. Dylan and Gavin are there, both dead, their heads torn off, intestines pulled out, and now it's my turn to die. The fear paralyzes me. It feels so fucking real when he plunges the knife into me. The pain is still there, even as I wake up to examine my stomach and chest. Instead of coming across a gruesome wound, I notice 3 distinct scratch marks on my right side. Mocking of the Trinity, as Connor used to say. It seems that I end up as a dead body in almost every dream that I have. Hey, this remains to be the sole word that Gavin says when I wake up with a fever and sticky sweat seething from out of my skin. He's on his side and glaring at me with exhausted bags under his eyes. The voices turn my attention away from him and to them. It seems like they're coming out of the air vent. Faggot pig. Can you oink like one better than you can suck cock? That's all you are. All you'll ever be. I look down at my hands, but I don't understand why I have them, and if they're really my hands. Is this really my body? The sharp pain from the nightmare is there. But what if this world is fabricated? and the layers of sleep that I continuously die in are what's real. Hands, hands, not my hands. What do you mean? He asks, stopping himself midway from taking my arm. Of course they're your hands. You want a cigarette? Maybe some breakfast? You promised me sex. You thought I'd forget. Well, now I want it. I'm not sure where those words came from or if it's even me that said it. How often do I say what I'm thinking out loud without realizing it? Constantly, he answers. I stare at his hands as he handles a flashlight. Hands. You... Don't worry about it. I couldn't sleep with you fidgeting like that. It makes me feel like shit because I don't know what to do. Do I wake you and pull you out of it, only to have you scream and attack me? Or do I let you suffer through it just to see it affect you for the rest of the day? But the sex. Again, not me speaking. Is that even my fucking voice? Fucking pig's voice. Not yet. After breakfast, maybe. Just try to relax and smoke and think about nothing. My mind races like a dozen bricks tossed into a washing machine. He leaves to make breakfast, and I pace around the mess of guitar strings, half-broken ambient cassettes, dusty imported records, and contact mics. Eventually, I put on a pair of briefs and sway myself back and forth on the edge of the bed. I focus on the sound of soft rain that reminds me of Islamic prayers and wind chimes that allow my mother's whispering voice to calm me down. I'm going to take good care of you. Nothing's ever going to hurt my baby boy. I love you, I love you, I love you, my sweet Elliot. She sings to me. Yes, I'm fine. Everything's going to be fine, and she's going to take good care of me someday.
Wow. I forgot to ask when you started, was that an excerpt from Fucked Up or?
Yeah, that was from Fucked Up.
Man, you have no idea how much I'm looking forward to that. Does that have a release date confirmed yet?
I don't know. Ask Damien.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
I don't ask him because I don't want to like mess with him.
I gotcha. Damien, you're in the chat. Damien says ask Manny, so I'll send Manny a DM and see. But now I am so looking forward to that. Speaking of like before, like real human horror, that is incredible. I think from what I've heard of Fucked Up so far, what I really love about it is like how delicately balanced it is between like flat out exploitation and literature, and it never quite tips over to either side. Like you've got, if it doubled down a little bit more on like the really egregious shit and had a little less like psychological depth and insight, you'd be like, oh, this is like exploitation shit. But whenever it starts to tip into that territory, there's always like some real piercing moment of like honesty there that brings it back into literature. It's just fascinating. I'm so looking forward to reading it.
Yeah, I agree. That's what makes it so like visceral. It's the combination of those two things. But anyway, I'm just the reader. Kudos
Absolutely.
to them. Bye.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That was a great performance.
I'm going to, we're almost done with our scheduled readers. I'm going to read just a couple short pieces of mine in just a second. I'm going to step away just for a minute to get more iced tea because my throat is parched and I'm going to be reading. After that, we'll have an open mic. If anyone would like to read during the open mic, just mention it in the chat, and Rudy and I will be kind of trying to watch that. I think Andy, you had hit me up at the beginning, right, to say that you wanted to read during the open mic?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. So Andy will be first up for the open mic, and then anyone else who wants to just say something in the chat. Anyway, I'll be right back, just 1 second, and then I'm going to read, if I don't trip on this stupid trench coat and die.
Well, the pumpkin looks really sad when there's no, like, the little plastic pumpkin looks really sad now with no person there.
I'm just waiting to see if this trench coat does its thing.
Okay. So I'm going to read a couple of, not sure if my mic is muted or unmuted. It's unmuted. Okay. I'm going to read a couple of pretty short pieces. Both of them are from a few years ago. And both of them are, I guess, ghost stories in a sense. This first one I'm reading in part because it is sort of a ghost story, but it's also a kind of political story. I wrote it at the beginning of 2017, at the very, very beginning of Trump's tenure as president. And I feel like if I don't read it this week, I'll never get a chance to read it again because it will probably be, knock on wood, it will probably be irrelevant pretty soon. Anyway, this piece is called The White House at Night. The following piece provides a rare glimpse into an average night in the Trump White House. Everything that follows is based on interviews with anonymous sources and, while some details may be incomplete or embellished, we believe that it rests on a solid foundation of fact and provides insight into a man who often can seem opaque and inscrutable, and in whose hands rests the fate of a nation. Donald Trump sits at a small table in the White House kitchen, nursing a glass of Diet Coke. All of the kitchen staff have gone home. It will be hours before they return to start breakfast. The light above the table is out. He cannot find the switch. He tried the one above the sink, only to learn that it operates the garbage disposal. He only let it run for a split second before turning it off, but he can still hear it grinding somewhere inside his inner ear as he watches the cola fizz. He drops an ice cube in the glass and thinks about his brother. Freddie never turned down a rum and coke. No self-control. Disgusting. And Donald loved him, misses him every day. He had watched the autopsy of a drunk once during a sleepless night, spent lost in the more obscure corners of basic cable. He remembered the liver, bloated and black. The coroner asked the cameraman to zoom in on it, to show how it was covered with bumps. Hundreds of tiny pimples. He had to change the channel. Years later, during that dinner at Jean George's, the one his staff had arranged and Pence had insisted that he had not cancel, he had looked down at the tabletop, away from the desperate pleading in Mitt's eyes, and had noticed the 2 glasses of water sitting there, both unaccompanied by wine, alone and yet together. In that moment, he had thought, maybe he's not such an asshole. Maybe there's something to him. But then Romney spoke, and he heard the affected prep school drawl, that way of talking that was always inherited, never learned, and the feeling of kinship evaporated. No, he thought, he's an asshole. The Coke was stale now. How long had he been sitting here? There was no clock on the wall, or maybe there was. It was impossible to tell in the dark. He considered going to bed. Maybe he would try the Lincoln bedroom tonight. He had been told it was haunted. He'd love to have a chance to talk to Abe, a decisive guy, a man who did not fuck around. Sherman's march, half of the South burned to the ground, and now everyone loves him for it, as they should. He stands and pours the rest of the Coke down the drain. He's too restless to sleep. Steve always works late. He wonders if he's still around somewhere. Bannon had cornered him in the Oval Office that morning. His face was red, too red for an hour after breakfast. There was Freddie again, never completely out of mind. Donald didn't remember everything he had said, but a few lines had stayed with him. You're nouveau riche. You're the self-made man. It doesn't matter who your father was. You're the American dream, what every working American aspires to be, a Big Mac on a silver platter. You're Jay Gatsby, risen from the dead, and together we're going to get our revenge on every one of those East Egg motherfuckers. He wonders if he can get Steve to say those words again. A bedtime story. It might help him sleep. But when he reaches Bannon's office, the lights are out and the door is open. His chair is empty. Donald wanders out into the darkened lawn without notifying the Secret Service. He doesn't bother to wake Keith Schiller. Soon he is sitting in a folding chair beside the tennis court, watching the ghost of Calvin Coolidge's teenage son play an invisible opponent. The boy is agile, a natural athlete. He returns every volley. The ball never touches the net. He thinks of Barron back in New York. He tries to imagine his son on the other end of the court, where empty air faithfully returns the ball to the phantom teen. But the child conjured by his memory is blurred, a streak of flesh-colored paint holding a tennis racket with a thumbprint where its face should be. He had never had a good memory for faces. When someone was out of his sight, they disappeared from his mind, fell back into darkness filled with familiar voices, pleading, protesting, conniving, and every voice wanted something from him, expected something. How many of them were dead now? Who cares? He tries to drown them out, to focus on the game. He reaches into the pocket of his robe, searching for his phone. It's not there. He grunts as he pushes himself out of the chair and returns to the house, leaving Calvin Jr. behind. As he walks away, he listens for the crack of the tennis ball against the strings of the racket, but hears nothing. When he reaches the door to the West Wing, he looks over his shoulder and sees the bleeding edge of the rising sun just beyond the rose garden. Inside, he finds his phone on the table in the Roosevelt room. He picks it up and opens Twitter. He begins to type, but then hesitates, unsure of what he planned to say. He deletes everything but a single word, the one he started with, sad. Okay, and one more short piece, and then I'm done. This is a piece that I wrote, I don't know, a while back. It looks like I wrote it in 2016, specifically to be a Halloween piece for the site. Yeah, I don't think it needs any more introduction than that. My house is haunted. My life is haunted. I meet the same ghosts every day. I can't avoid them, and I can't exorcise them. They are stubborn and reliable creatures of habit, always performing exactly the same tasks at exactly the same times, following some fixed schedule that must have been meaningful when they were alive, but is now just a rote mechanical process, a parody of a human life. Since I cannot get rid of them, and the parish priest no longer returns my calls, I have grudgingly integrated them into my daily routine. Here are a few of my most consistent spectral pests. 7:30 a.m., the poltergeist who completes my morning routine. I might consider this ghost a blessing, were my experiences with it not so unnerving. There have been days when I've woken up, already fully showered and dressed, at my desk, at work, miles from my home, with no memory of anything besides going to sleep the night before. On other, less disorienting days, I have watched this being who never speaks and who has no visible form, physical or otherwise, make my breakfast while I sat, completely paralyzed, at the kitchen table. It always serves me cereal, the same brand, Life, ironically, in the same bowl, the same 2% milk. It never asks me if I would like to try something new. Orange juice is never on the menu. I've looked blankly, emotionally into my bathroom mirror, fogged with post-shower condensation, while my electric razor and comb levitate about my face, serving their purposes unbidden, accepting no input from me, always with disappointing results. Sometimes it will even button my shirt, but it inevitably misses at least one buttonhole along the way. I do not think its intent is benevolent. Perhaps it was a single mother once, or a stay-at-home dad, and maybe one morning, after a sleepless night, It filled the bathtub and held a toddler's face underwater until the bubbles stopped rising to the surface, and then, filled with relief and despair, emptied the contents of its veins into the sink where the stubble from my face is falling now. I just wish it wouldn't always miss a spot on my chin, just above my jugular. Noon, the wraith who cannot let go of his troubled adolescence. He comes to me at lunchtime, just after the microwave beeps, while I'm removing my reheated leftovers from the night before. He wears a black trench coat, a corn t-shirt, camo pants, fingerless gloves, the works. I usually try to eat alone, but I would not mind his company if he were a better conversationalist. He only wants to talk about his teen angst. His voluminous mental storehouse filled with high school anecdotes, some awkward, some mortifying, some simply sad. He has much to say about belligerent bullies and dances he opted not to attend. Most of his stories are deeply trivial. While they themselves are supernatural, all ghosts are obsessed with the mundane and revolve around small embarrassments and social slights. Over and over again, he tells me the tale of a failed civics assignment. The teacher, apparently, was an absolute cocksucker. He never speaks of dates or relationships. He repeats himself constantly, revising the same agonizing moments over and over again. He rarely lets me speak and never acknowledges my attempts to give him perspective or to change the subject. When lunch is over, he turns away and leaves. He never says goodbye, but a loose flap of skin and skull, red at its margins, waves to me from the back of his head as he walks through the wall. 4:45 p.m., the spear of brilliant light that I cannot quite see. This haunting occurs when I get home from work each day, usually as I am removing my shoes. A subtle glow begins to radiate from a point just beyond the range of my peripheral vision. It's soft at first, but grows exponentially more intense with each passing moment. I feel a vague, intangible sense of euphoria, usually tinged with nostalgia. I remember a feeling, never a concrete event, from my childhood. I feel as if I'm being drawn backwards through time, being given an opportunity to reclaim some lost piece of myself, perhaps my soul. I cannot look into the light because I know it will disappear, like those cemetery orbs that are only visible on an overexposed film. However, failing to look does not make the light or the feeling stay. It vanishes. The experience is very short, always less than a minute, often more like 10 seconds. I know nothing more about this spirit. The more desperately I try to grasp it, the more rapidly it disintegrates. Maybe it's a dead ancestor, a kindly great-great-great-grandmother, dead of extreme old age, but unwilling to depart completely. Or maybe it's a phantom sadist who has discovered that there is no torture as vicious as hope. 11:15 p.m., the shade that joylessly masturbates in my living room. I often catch him seated in front of my computer as I prepare for bed. His blank stare fixed on my monitor, and his hand in his ethereal pants. He never looks at me, and does not seem to care if I watch him, nor does he seem to get anything out of being watched. In fact, he doesn't seem to derive any pleasure from the act at all. Even though he's a ghost, I never hear him moan. He's a pale shadow with no distinct features. His face is smudged, like a smear of paint left behind as an artist accidentally effaces his own portrait with his thumb. I do not know how he lived or when he died, but he always seems to be looking at images of actresses from the mid-90s, so maybe that's a clue? Could he have been going through puberty then? Did his life end before his youth? I have no idea. He doesn't speak. I tried to talk to him once, and he just minimized his browser window and vanished. I suppose it's none of my business. Midnight to dawn. The faceless black specter who materializes at the side of my bed and reminds me of all the ways that I might die. I hate this fucker. That's it. Happy Halloween. Okay. So that's it.
Those are both so good.
Thank you.
The White
yeah,
House
thanks,
one,
guys.
super relevant. But also, you should finish working on the White House at Night, the video game.
Oh yeah, I don't know that. I think that now it's really there was a few years ago, Rudy, myself, and a friend of ours were trying to adapt that story into a basically a point and click adventure game where you'd explore the White House and encounter different ghosts. I never really got off the ground, and now I think it's probably too late. Maybe not.
The Donald
Maybe it'll
Trump
be more
visual
relevant
novel.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't hear that.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's like the Donald Trump visual novel.
Yes, that's what that's exactly what it was. It was going to be like a visual novel about Donald Trump cluelessly wandering around the White House, running into different ghosts of past presidents and historical figures.
You say
And-
never got off the ground, but didn't that have a Vice article about the preview?
Well, we tried to do a Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter did not go well. But yeah, Vice did write. I sent out we made a little prologue and sent it to a bunch of publications, and Vice was the only one that bit, maybe for obvious reasons. Yeah. Anyway, so Andy, you're first up in the open mic, so it's all yours now.
I have to split to this like anthology launch thing that I'm in, but
I saw
thanks
that.
everybody who read. This was super awesome. Everybody brought great work. I love you all. Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween, Carter. Thank you so much for coming.
I think I was on the list.
Oh my
tonight.
God, Michael, I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good. I haven't had my camera on, so I've just
I
been kind of
have
lurking here.
you are on the list, and I skipped you, so you were next. Really sorry about that. I have been
No worries at all.
really maybe it's because this trench coat is like 105 degrees, but I have been really out of sync with everything tonight. Yeah, sorry about that. You were actually supposed to be between Derek and Damien. Here you go.
It's all good. No, I've just been here enjoying it. I do have to duck out after this, but wanted to share. So this is based on true stories of ghost stories that I experienced. I tried writing them down for the first time tonight, so I apologize if the prose is a little rough. Usually I just ramble this story at people, but I wanted to try and do it a little bit more coherently. So I guess I'll just read through it and we'll see how it goes. Hang on, let me set it up so I can share the text with everybody. Anyone with link? Okay. Hopefully this link works.
Do you mind if I throw that link up on Twitter or?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
Okay,
no, I'm
awesome.
probably not gonna. If I ever submit this, it would require a lot of massaging and probably a couple changing of names. But it's cool for now. Cool. So I'm just calling this the Perkins School narrative. Perkins School for the Blind was founded in 1829, but it wasn't until the spring of 1912 that it relocated to its present location on the heights above a gentle bend of the Charles River in Watertown, Massachusetts. There grew over the decades. Helen Keller was among its student body, bordered by picturesque Bostonian neighborhoods and the steady thrum of North Beacon Street and Charles River Road, both of which serve as speedy conduits for commuters as they hurl on to the capital of the Commonwealth. Perkins School is, in fact, several different schools enclosed in a wide grid held between black iron pike fencing. At its heart is the Howe Building, a spired speckled clock tower that rises above the trees and calls out 4 times an hour to the lazy boats on the river and the manic cars on the turnpike. I lived at Perkins for 13 months in one of the student cottage copses, 4 buildings clustered into rough triangles and defined by their red brick and smooth stone stateliness. I entered during the winter of 2011 and left just as the next one ended. I worked with severely disabled children in the hours between school, the bulk of kids middle-aged and high school-aged who spent their calendar year in Watertown, and when they went to sleep. Being a night owl, I quickly fell in with some of the overnight old hands, shared their mentholated cigarettes, and gently declined their repeated offers to do my laundry. But one topic quickly emerged during these late night gatherings. The Perkins was haunted, that everyone knew about it, and sooner than later, I would encounter them one way or another. In the end, they were right. The experiences recorded in this narrative are true, such as they are, and were reported to my superiors for no other reason than my sense of duty as a low-level functionary in a sprawling educational network utterly dependent on information gathering. Special education isn't unlike searching for truths in the dark, shaking flashlight in hands, and to come across something as otherworldly as I did, well, let's just say there are filing cabinets in a Boston suburb containing files written in my hand that relate to experiences with ghosts in the mechanical style of a teacher's log. The first encounter, well, series of encounters, I should say, began within weeks. Some background. My living area featured 4 buildings, 2 floors tall, and connected in pairs by long hallways. At the end of each hallway were squares. On the first floor, the squares contained living rooms, nurses' offices, playrooms. At the connecting points were the great kitchens and laundry rooms, and between those spaces were burrow-like offices propped up in whatever spot could be found. Students lived in the long hallways on the second floor, and at either end were staff bedrooms, including those for the building coordinators and assistant coordinators. My bedroom was in the far square, along with 2 other bedrooms. The bedrooms are small, poorly ventilated, dry in the winter and volcanic in the summertime. One night I sat in my room writing when I heard footsteps make their way down the hallway to the square outside my bedroom, where they circled, slowly and audibly. Thinking a student had left their room and snuck past an unawares overnight staffer, I opened my door and found nothing. After peeking around the corners and checking the closet, I went back to my room, closed the door, and sat back down at my desk. More footsteps. I kept checking again and again, and an overnight staffer assured me that no, every student was in bed. Finally, I climbed between my sheets and tried to sleep. I felt eyes in the back of my head, felt them radiating from within the open closet. So I stood up and shut the door, and the sensation of being watched was gone. For the next year, I would never sleep with my closet door open again. The footsteps continued for the rest of my time there, every few weeks or so. When I told the overnight staff, I got knowing smiles in return, but little explanation. It's not like they knew who it was. A former student, perhaps, or worse. One of them reckoned that the school had been built near an unmarked burial ground. With no other option, I did my best to ignore the sounds, wondering who it was that refused to stop moving. The other experience was far more jarring. One of the first stories from other Perkins staff I heard was about a little girl and the old woman she said sat in the corner of her bedroom. This went on for 2 years, I was told, until it stopped. The prevailing argument is that some students, particularly those suffering from significant development disorders, may perceive elements of our reality differently because of the way their brains are wired. We didn't think of them as different, only that their eyes were open in ways that ours were not. About 10 months into my tenure, I was working with a particularly tough student, we'll call him Mike. Mike was 18, a mere 85 pounds, completely blind in one eye and almost completely in another, aggressive and prone to violence, an avowed hater of children, and the most fluent and expressive user of American Sign Language I ever met. He threw his body into it, particularly if he was displeased by, say, the temperature of his various pastes or my inability to operate the video chat system he used to contact his family. A clever kicker and puller of hair, I quickly learned to cut the hair I'd kept long for years. Now, Mike was a fun time once you got past the burst of aggressions, the avoidance behaviors. His ability to mimic animal noises was legendary in the cottages. He had a riotous sense of humor. And unlike other students who shared his sense of frustration with a teacher's schedule, he loved to take his meds, climb into bed, and promptly go to sleep. Except this one time when Mike had gone to bed and I sat outside scratching as I could through his log, eager to attend a party at the apartment I paid $300 a month for, a room I slept in twice a week. Mike had been a card all day and there wasn't much to report. Toss bowl of food here, a refusal to fold laundry there, but overall, a good day. I looked up from the log to see Mike standing in the doorway. He looked at me and signed in sequence. Go downstairs, watch movie. What? I signed in reply. Bedtime. Mike sleep. Of course, the idea of watching a movie was absurd, not only because of the time, but because the idea of organized fun was so foreign and offensive to Mike that to suggest it invited a quick grab of the hair. Still, he kept trying. Watch a movie. Play a game. No, I signed. Bed, please. But Mike didn't go to bed. He sat down on the floor, a classic Mike avoidance behavior, and stared into his room and up into the dark corner on the far end of it. Now, I'd seen Mike scared before. It was easy to miss. There's a tenseness one can confuse with anger, but it was there. Before I could move closer and say anything, he raised a hand and pointed at the corner. I moved myself into his field of vision and pointed at the corner. Scared? I signed. He swiftly signed yes. You see? I asked, rummaging through my limited vocabulary. He signed yes again and whimpered. At last I signed, man or woman? Man, he replied. For the next few minutes, I tried to reverse the logic of my questioning to see if I could suss out whether he was lying. I'm not a great signer. But after trying a few different approaches, the end result was the same. There was a man in Mike's room, and I couldn't see him. With that, I stood up and moved to the stairwell, at the bottom of which sat my supervisor's office. I called to my supervisor, who we'll call Amy, and descended the stairs to meet her. So Mike says there's a man like hovering in the corner of his room? He won't get in bed and keeps asking to come downstairs. Amy's face lost its color. Oh, she said, let me see what I can do. Amy walked Mike through the same set of questions. She knew him far better than I did, and after some coaxing got him up on his feet and back into the bedroom. Lights on, of course. But Mike kept whimpering, and pointing and signing man, man, man. I wrote a few spare lines on my logbook. Mike sees a ghost in his room? ? After about 15 more minutes, Mike was in bed, sitting upright, whimpering, his head crooked and facing the corner. I can't believe he's still awake, Amy said. It's literally his favorite thing to do. When the overnight staff came, I told them that Mike was having a tough time and took a while to go to sleep. She nodded and took the logbook from me. Downstairs, I sat in Amy's office and sipped a can of Coke, the party at my apartment forgotten. It's fucked up, Amy said, both to me and to the otherwise empty room. It's been a while since that happened to somebody here. As I left the college and quickly walked to the staff parking lot, I saw no reason to go back to my room where I'd surely dwell on whatever lived in the closet. I thought about another story I'd been told. One of the other junior teachers, a woman we'll call Jess, had gone out one night on one winter night when the snow was falling and the rumbly old heating systems filled the cottages with warmth. She returned and walked up the stone pathway and turned to the front door of her building. Behind the window panes, she said, stood a little girl who mouthed silent words while her hands pawed at the glass. After a few seconds, the girl stepped back and vanished, and the steamy condensation on the window disappeared with her. And that's it.
Now, this might just be me trying to justify my fuck up, but I'm really glad we ended the formal portion of the reading with that, because first of all, that was scary as shit, and I'm not going to sleep tonight. Second of all, though, like, what better way, like, to end a reading, a Halloween reading, than with real fucking ghost stories? You know, that like takes you back to childhood slumber parties and shit, which really like or at Zoom readings, just like an extension of childhood slumber parties. That's something to think on. I don't know.
I've always
so
been
good.
willing to admit that like the footsteps in the hallway like were maybe not a person, but like I just heard them so many times that it was hard not to conclude that. And then the thing with my student, that was almost word for word what happened with him. And like I said, there was another student there who had like something happen like that. I didn't put this in the writing, but the teacher who told me that story about the little girl at the window, like without a whole like her whole life story, like just one of those people who you just they don't fabricate or exaggerate.
Right,
Like it's just like not in their personality. That's who told the story. And like that was probably the most chilling one I heard there, just because of the source of it. And she was just like, yeah, I was walking in and there was a little girl there and then she was gone. And but the overnight staff, yeah, I mean they had other stories like it. Like you would just see like the faint outlines of people walking on the roads. And yeah, so that was a weird place to work. Cool teaching job, but yeah, definitely haunted as shit location.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I don't know how long I would have lasted there for any number of reasons. Christ. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I could not have my closet door open. Like just the feeling of being watched was so palpable. yeah, opening it in general was just unpleasant. And I just always had this like mental image of just like a little girl standing in there, and she would just be staring out, and it was always just exactly that. I'd be like, nope, I got to shut this door and not open it for a while. So
Yeah, that sensation of being watched when you know that you can't possibly be being watched is like the most like viscerally upsetting thing ever.
even if the light was on and I'd be at my desk, like I'd have to get up and just shut the door. It's like, no, I'm not alone right now, so I'm good on this. And I told the overnight staff, and they were like, yeah, that checks out.
Yeah, no. I remember as a kid, um, the way our bathroom was set up was so the bathroom there was like a small window immediately in the kind of back of the bathroom, and then and the wall like opposite it was a mirror. And I remember being a kid at night, and we lived in the middle of the absolute boondocks, the middle of nowhere, so there was never like anyone around. I would not look in that mirror at night because I had this like really distinct sensation that there was someone watching in the window behind my back, and if I looked at the mirror I would see them. And it was like this most bizarre irrational phobia, but like it's like bone chilling, and to have that happen like as an adult, ugh, you know. But yeah, anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much,
No,
Michael.
thanks for letting me share that. Like I said, I just banged that out earlier, so I have to do some cleaning up. But yeah, I'm glad people enjoyed that. I actually have to head out, folks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all your stuff tonight. It was excellent. Wonderful costumes to everyone as well. So happy Halloween, and I'll catch you all later.
Yeah, happy Halloween. Have a good one. Sorry again about that.
No, it's fine. I think I had asked to go last anyway, so but I was like, oh, the open mic, I should chime in here real quick.
Yeah, definitely.
Good night,
Okay,
folks.
thanks. See you. Okay, so now we will do the open mic. Andy, you are up first. Rudy, I have to admit I haven't been watching the chat very well. Do we have anyone signed up after Andy?
Yeah, it looks like we have Andy and then Forced Convales, then Steph, and then Carter, I believe.
Awesome. I think Carter ducked out.
Left. So yeah, I think that's the end of the queue.
Gotcha. So Andy, you're up first.
Cool. Yeah, thanks guys for having the reading. Missouri Tourism. This is my costume. I'm a K-pop singer. I don't know if it's working or not, but we'll see. I shaved for it. I don't think a lot of K-pop singers have facial.
Fantastic.
Let's see if this works. All right. Give me 1 second. Let me know if you can hear this. Is that too loud, or can you hear that?
I can hear you clearly, and I can hear the music clearly as well.
You hear the music?
Yes.
All right, great. After Morgan dipped out, the fruit fly moved into my apartment in Columbia Heights, DC, to live with me. Today it hung out in the living room, crashing on the sofa in the early afternoon while I did office work on my laptop. I typed sentences into a Word document as a fruit fly snored and whistled a bebop jazz tune in its sleep. A few times my phone rang. I was too busy to pick it up. I forgot about it after a while, focusing on my work. I obsessed over my work, labored over it, kept it close. When the fruit fly woke up, it flew around in my kitchen and nibbled on the bruised Bartlett pears from my glass bowl as I smoked the joint on the balcony and watched it suck the juices out the fruit. It looked at me and grinned, blowing me a kiss. I stared at my feet. They were covered in ash. I went inside and closed the sliding glass door, looking up as the fruit fly hovered on top of the room, near the wooden ceiling fan rotating back and forth. I wished it would get sliced up by the fan and turn into bits and pieces. It weaved in and out of the wooden panels and spun around in slow circles. And it landed on the Formica countertop and laid on its stomach, blowing snot bubbles. 1 bubble, 2 bubble, 3 bubble. I went into the bathroom and sat on the toilet with my sweatpants around my ankles. I was constipated. Maybe this was why Morgan left me. I didn't have the answers. What I had was that fruit fly. I washed my hands with hot water and soap, and when I went back into the living room, the fruit fly was dry humping a plum in a wicker basket. I rushed back into the bathroom, got on my knees, and sucked my finger down my throat to puke out my guts. When I stepped back into the living room, the fruit fly was making love to the plum with passion, thrusting back and forth and moaning. I opened the front door and told it to get the fuck out. It kept licking the plum, sucking on its fruit, gripping its peel. I cleared my throat and opened the door wider. Get out, I said. It looked at me with its Coke bottle eyes and sneered. It spat on the carpet and flipped me off. It called me a prude. It mooned me. I went into the storage closet and grabbed the fly swatter, and then I ran back into the living room, swinging at the fruit fly. I smacked it, and it launched against the window, sliding down the glass until it hit the ground. I walked over to it, looking down at it. The fruit fly looked up at me and rolled on the carpet to the left, dropping into the air vent. I got on the ground, reached over with my hand, watched it falling down the dark hole. I stood up, walked over to the couch and sat. My phone started ringing on the coffee table. I didn't pick it up. I curled up against the cushions and stared out the window, looking at the construction site, the raindrops spilling on the concrete. A black cat was purring at a pile of broken planks and steel beams. Meow. It looked in my direction, or at least I thought it did. I fell asleep. I dreamt I was laying on the ground, getting hit in the face by plums, big and small, ripe and rotten, like being teabagged over and over. One plum hit me in the eye, another smacked against my chin. I blacked out. I woke up on the couch, drenched with sweat, my breath shallow. I went to my bedroom, did 2 lines of K off my phone, and smoked a bowl. When I was feeling high, I stepped back into the living room and giggled. I giggled and giggled and giggled some more. I liked feeling this way, and that was a problem. I didn't know how to approach and fix it. The fruit fly was flipping pancakes in the kitchen, whistling a familiar jazz tune, some Bird or Coltrane song, the apartment smelling like chocolate chips and bananas. I pulled up a chair and sat at the long marble island. I was exhausted. I stared at my hands and breathed in deeply. I'm sorry I hit you, I said. I really was sorry. I shouldn't have done that, but you also shouldn't be fucking a plum in the common area. Do you know what I mean? Can you understand me? The fruit fly poured orange juice into 2 glasses and gave me one. As it leaned back against the countertop, it drank the juice and clicked its teeth. I get it, I'm sorry, that won't happen again, I promise, it said. I couldn't believe I was talking to the fruit fly. Didn't actually think it could actually comprehend what I was saying. Maybe I was so high, I gotta call my dealer again. I had imagined this conversation with it, maybe, I didn't know. Appreciate it, I said, shaking hands with it. We were good now, for the moment at least. We sat at the kitchen and ate the pancakes on paper plates, drinking the orange juice. It was a good cook, knew its way around the kitchen for sure. It asked me my name. I told it my name was Andrew, asked it what its name was, and it told me it didn't have one, nor did it want one. I considered giving it a name, but it felt strange, like naming a pet or something, which it was not. I told it that I've been calling it It, like the novel It by Stephen King, which it was not. I told it that I've been calling it It, like the novel It by Stephen King, which it was not. My joke made it laugh, but then afterwards it frowned. I'm not Pennywise. And when I realized my mistake, I said sorry and told me it didn't really care. We finished eating the pancakes, hung out on the balcony, and vibed to the sounds of a traffic jam on the street below my apartment. We talked about philosophy, autofiction, social media, or romantic partners or lack thereof. It liked Emerson and Freud, loved Sheila Heidi. I don't know if I said that name wrong, right? And Ben Lerner, despised Twitter and IG, was a sex addict who got dumped by a red plum a year ago. And I told it I had a girlfriend. I told it I was in love with Morgan and how we wanted a child named Andrea or Andre, depending on the sex. I said Morgan and I met in college at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, and that she majored in English and I majored in communications. which was a euphemism for skipping classes to sell dime bags to the kids in the suburbs. Morgan liked the cinema, called it that over the movie theater, not because she was snobby, but because she thought the word cinema looked stylish on the page. I liked watching hip-hop music videos featuring 21 Savage, Young Metro Boomin, and sometimes Future. We've been dating for 4 years, but that's all in the past. I told the fruit fly that Morgan left the apartment, and perhaps me as well. It asked me why, and I didn't have an answer for it, because I wasn't sure what the catalyst could have been, really. But then I thought about it, and maybe it was because I did drugs often. Maybe it was the gap in my front teeth, the small mole in my left cheek, my lack of color coordination for my outfits, because I like Brussels sprouts, steamed instead of fried. Maybe because I didn't like to talk very much. That's a lot, dude, the fruit fly said. Sorry you're going through that. I cracked my knuckles. Thanks, man. Questions for me, it asked? Where are you from? Chicago. I'm a White Sox fan. I like jazz and the sax. You like jizz and the sex? No, I like jazz and the saxophone. That all? I thought about baseball and jazz for a full minute. And then I said, you need to help out with rent. I rubbed my fingertips together, the money gesture, hoping it would understand body language. How, it asked. With money, haven't you ever paid rent? I was acting ridiculous, but the situation felt ridiculous, so I acted accordingly. It shook its head. I'm a fruit fly. What's money? We just had an hour-long conversation about the Topeka school and Twitter and Emerson. You like baseball, jazz, and you're from Chicago, but you don't know what the fuck money is? Humor me, it said. After I explained the concept of money to the fruit fly, I rolled a joint with some papers and mediocre weed. It laughed and told me it did know what money is. How it liked to fuck with people's heads for pranks. Gotcha, bitch. I was a bit irritated, but didn't care that much. I rolled my eyes, coughed out smoke, and passed the joint to the fruit fly. It did a big hit and made a smoke cloud, leaning back in the couch, indica. So why'd you try to kill me, it asked, wheezing. I grabbed the joint and took another hit inside. I wasn't trying to kill you, I was trying to stun you. I'm sorry again. Stun me? With the fucking fly swatter? I could have died, man. And I thought about it for a moment, and the fruit fly was right. I almost killed it, but I didn't. I was being decent to it, trying to be kind, despite everything it had done to me, and I thought about it again, and I knew it was right, and I was wrong, but I didn't want to admit my mistake. When I showed accountability and maturity, I felt broken. I heard a jazz song playing loudly. The fruit fly was playing the saxophone, and it sounded poorly at first, but then the melody sounded coherent, full of depth. It played a jazz song that sounded sad and true and terribly gorgeous. And it tried to play well, and well, that's what mattered, the attempt, the act of it. It stopped playing the saxophone and took a bow. It looked happy. I stood up, clapping my hands. Sounds good, man. It looked at me, grinning. I'm learning how to play some Coltrane songs. Been doing it for a while now. I know I'm not great, but I can't quit it. Music's a lovely habit. Yo, play another song. Really? Yeah, I'm here for it. The fruit fly picked up the saxophone and started playing again. And this time it didn't miss a single note. The next day, someone was knocking on the front door. I opened it. Morgan was in the hallway, holding a wine bottle and a black tote bag in the other. She looked at me and smiled. Hey, lover boy, she said, hugging me. Missed you. I tried calling you yesterday. You been busy? Where the fuck were you? I asked. I couldn't believe she was here, right in front of me, acting as if nothing had happened. She frowned. Virginia, I was with family. I thought I called you. I let her come in. I didn't know what else to do. I haven't had someone touch me in a long time, and I needed to be touched. When Morgan walked into the kitchen, she pinched her nose and made a disgusted face. What happened? The apartment reeks, she said, handing me the wine bottle. Nothing, everything's fine, I said, faking a smile. I was irritated, on the verge of throwing her shit off the balcony, but I bit my bottom lip and set the items on a countertop, The wine looked expensive, a brand from California that I would fumble up. Andrew, come on. Morgan was painting at the sink, her hand on her hip. This is gross. Like, seriously, it's a dump, she said, placing her hand on the faucet. It sputtered out light sprays. Water flowed down the dirty dishes, all these dirty dishes everywhere. As Morgan cleaned them with a sponge and soap, I ran my hands through my hair, sucking my teeth. She cleaned for 12 minutes and dried her hands off with a paper towel. I should have helped her, but I was bitter. I was resentful. I had problems, but don't we all? I went to the fridge, got out the Brita pitcher, poured some water into a purple plastic cup. I drank the water and thought about saying something snarky or cruel, but I couldn't think of anything snarky and cruel. And that made me less tense, less angry, more forgiving. Thanks. Think looks better. You didn't have to do that, baby, I said, trying my best to stay relaxed as I finished the water and smiled. Lover boy, you need to pull yourself together, Morgan said. I laughed. Now I was feeling annoyed again. What? She looked confused, which made me laugh more. I sat on the sofa and looked at my phone, scrolling through emails in my inbox. Nothing important, but the point was to make it seem like I had a good life going on, you know? After a moment, I tossed my phone on top of the coffee table, kicked my feet up and looked at her. I don't need this shit from you. You're the one who left. To be honest, I don't know why the hell you came back. Her voice trembled. She looked sorry, but I wanted an apology. I wanted her out of here. I rubbed my cheek and sighed. I looked up at the ceiling. The fruit fly was hiding behind one of the wooden panels of the ceiling fan. It blew a raspberry. It winked at me and gave me a thumbs up, which made me feel better. Not a whole lot, but at least it had my back. She walked into the living room and looked up at the fan, her face screwed up. What are you looking at? She asked. I don't know anymore, I said. And that was the truth. I didn't know how to articulate my pain over her and I having miscommunication. Morgan uncorked the wine bottle and poured the wine into 2 glasses. She walked over to the couch, set the glasses on the coffee table, and sat down next to me. Then she took my hand and held it, touching my wrists, grazing my knuckles, and rubbing my fingertips. I had an erection and I didn't care. I'm sorry, I thought you got my phone calls, she said. I didn't, I said. Why'd you leave? Morgan let go of my hand and picked up one of the glasses, taking a sip. My dad died, she said. She stopped drinking. From a heart attack, it happened so fast. I knew I should have told you, but I was processing it, you know? Him dying, I miss him. She lifted her glass and finished her wine. After she set it down, she started crying hard and loud. I'm sorry, I said. I'm so sorry. I didn't know her dad that well, but I really was sorry for Morgan, and I put my arm around her and pulled her closer to me, not knowing what else to say. I believed her. She had to be telling me the truth. We'd been dating for a long time, and that meant something significant to me. But I knew there was a chance I didn't mean the same to her. Morgan rested her head against my shoulder and closed her eyes, tears crawling down her cheeks. We sat there for 20 minutes, holding each other in silence. I looked at the ceiling fan, but the fruit fly wasn't there anymore. Where was that fucker? I reached over to the coffee table and grabbed my glass of wine and I drank it. It tasted delicious. Damn, it tasted good. But something felt stuck in the back of my throat. Felt like something was shimmying up and down my throat. I inhaled and coughed inside. I hit my chest. Dry heaving. Morgan looked at me. What's wrong, Andrew? She asked, rubbing my back. I held out my hand and pointed at my mouth. I got up from the couch, bending over at the waist as I spat out a loogie. It hurled against the flat screen TV and bounced against the glass. And that's when I realized I spat out the fruit fly from my mouth, that fucker. It was sitting on the carpeted floor, arms and legs sprawled out. Yo, my bad. I saw alcohol and thought this was a party. It said, standing up. Peace. It flew off the ground and flew out the living room and onto the balcony. I wanted to scream. I wanted to be alone. What the fuck just happened, Morgan asked. Lover boy. That's my new roomie, I said. I pinched the skin below my wrist to keep from shouting I was losing it. Did that bug just talk? That's not a bug, that's it! He's from Chicago, a White Sox fan. I was telling the truth. Or at least the truth I believed in at the time. I sighed. Morgan threw up her hands and scoffed. You say yes. Like this is normal. Like everything's fine, but it's not. Loverboy, this is crazy. I shrugged and had no idea what to say because she was right. I couldn't think of a way to make things less crazy, to make things better and more palatable for her. I sighed. That's all you're gonna give me? She looked upset. I folded my hands like I was praying. I heard a jazz song playing in the background, and as the saxophone blared, I left the living room and walked onto the balcony. The air was chilly. The fruit fly was leaning back against the railing, a saxophone in its hands, in a sentimental mood, playing its little spirit out. I liked its music, the way its song carried into the wind and stayed there, like it wouldn't leave. Thanks. Thanks for putting up with that.
It's the fucking remix.
I love the jazz accompaniment. Who was the artist, the jazz artist?
That was Duke Ellington and John Coltrane.
Okay, yeah.
Some of my favorites.
That's great. Yeah, I love the cadence, how the cadence of that piece really fit with the music, kind of. That was really good.
I've been listening to for 3 hours a day. Not like continuously. I'm not a psycho, but yeah.
No, I really like the idea of returning to a piece after having returning to a piece in a altered form with an altered presentation.
Yeah.
There's something very jazz about that very idea, right? And I loved it the first time, and I really like the changes and revisions you've made, the way you fleshed it out, and the delivery was it's fucking incredible. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it a lot.
I'm gonna go now. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming and reading.
It's been great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. It's
Halloween.
almost Halloween here already. So.
Yeah, we're about an hour and a half away here, so.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Night.
All right.
So Rudy, who's up next on the
I think it's or convalescence or Dolly, I think is that
with Dolly? Now, okay. Now, I've been waiting to see what the fuck is going on here. Okay, all right. It's all yours, Dolly. Is this a is this a silent piece? I'm not sure how to make this appear on the video for later. If you're going to have to say something, Dolly, because everyone who's here right now can really appreciate the situation, but people watching this later are going to be like, "What the fuck? Yikes!" I just pinned it. I wonder if that. Can you guys see that I just pinned it? I don't know if, as a host, if that does anything. Oh, I think I'm spotlighting it now. I'm just going to leave this up for a little bit. I think it's, is it showing up on the main window now? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I like the towel or whatever that's fluttering on the screen just a little bit on the the bottom corner of the screen. It really adds something.
Yeah, I believe that's the shirt of the individual that was sitting there.
I'm not sure how long we should linger on this, but I feel like
I
feel like a lot of fucking work was put into this.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the jump scare.
some Rudy says this is some Christmas log shit. Yeah, it really is the Halloween equivalent of that.
What if this is real? You know what I mean? Just, in case it's real.
I don't think he would be clipping through the background if it was.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Why do you have to ruin it, Brandon?
not ruining the mood. Yeah, the suspense of disbelief.
Oh god, this is yeah, exactly. Oh, that's what it is. That's his shirt. Okay, I know somebody said that, but I'm like in half an hour behind everyone else at this point in time. Yeah, this is good. Okay, Rudy, who's next up in the queue?
Boy, that new season of Dexter looks great.
Just in case the feds weren't already keeping tabs on us.
I believe Steph is next.
Oh, Steph, I think, is gone. She sent me a message on Twitter saying that she was having internet problems and that she'd swing by maybe next reading.
In that case, we're all clear in the queue.
All clear? Okay. Yeah, I'm sure Carter and Steph will probably read next week. It did run a little long tonight, but I think that's appropriate. And I think, but I do want to give people, if anyone here still wants to read, feel free to chime in now. If not, hey, there's always next week. No? Okay, in that case, I'm going to make the with Dolly thing spotlight again and end the recording on that. As usual, I'll keep the actual Zoom call open for a little while if people want to hang out. If you are watching this on YouTube, we do this shit every fucking Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Come by, read, lurk, post weird snuff videos in the background. We don't care. Anyway, happy Halloween, everyone. Have a good night.